Hi everyone, welcome to Cartoonology. I hope you're all doing well. Today I want to take you through the complete history of Bikini Bottom, from the moment alien visitors arrived on Earth 23,000 years ago, all the way to the modern city where SpongeBob flips Krabby Patties every single day. This isn't just SpongeBob's story. This is the entire story of how Bikini Bottom became what it is, covering prehistoric discoveries, medieval kingdoms, Wild West outlaws, secret recipes that stayed hidden for 800 years, and the rulers who shaped the ocean itself. But before we begin, I'd just like to kindly ask you all to subscribe. It's completely free, and it really helps us improve the videos for this wonderful community we've managed to build. Anyway, that's enough. Let's begin. Section 1. The Prehistoric Foundations. 23,000 BCE to 6,000 BC. The story of Bikini Bottom begins not on Earth, but among the stars. Long before SpongeBob SquarePants ever flipped his first Krabby Patty, long before Mr. Krabs counted his first dollar, and long before Squidward uttered his first complaint, the ocean floor that would become Bikini Bottom was just another empty stretch of sand and rock. But that was about to change in the most unexpected way possible. 23,000 years before the Common Era, something amazing happened. Visitors from another world arrived at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. These weren't just any visitors. They were the Atlanteans, an advanced race of beings who traveled through space and chose Earth's ocean as their new home. We know this happened because of what SpongeBob and his friends discovered during their journey to Atlantis, as documented in the episode Atlantis SquarePantis. When they finally reached the Lost City, they learned that the Atlanteans came from what Lord Royal Highness called their mother planet, confirming that these beings were not from Earth at all. The Atlanteans brought with them technology and knowledge far beyond anything that existed on Earth at the time. But they also brought something simpler, something that would become one of their most treasured possessions. Shortly after arriving, the Atlanteans blew what would later be known as the oldest living bubble. This wasn't just any bubble. It was created 23,000 years ago, making it the most ancient bubble in existence. The Atlanteans valued this bubble so much that they kept it preserved in their museum for thousands of years, treating it as their national treasure. They even posted signs forbidding flash photography near it, knowing that a camera flash could pop this precious piece of their history. For thousands of years after the Atlanteans arrived, the ocean remained mostly quiet. Life existed, of course. Fish swam through the waters, jellyfish drifted with the currents, and the foundation for what would eventually become Bikini Bottom slowly took shape. But recorded history during this time is scarce. We don't know much about what happened in those long years between the Atlanteans' arrival and the next major event in Bikini Bottom's history. What we do know is that time continued to pass, the ocean continued to exist, and change was coming. That change arrived around 8,000 years before the Common Era, and it came about through one of the strangest accidents in history. In the episode SB-129, Squidward Tentacles found himself trapped inside a time machine after hiding from SpongeBob and Patrick in the Krusty Krab's freezer. The machine sent him spinning through time, and he ended up in the prehistoric past, specifically around 8,000 BC. When Squidward emerged, confused and disoriented, he encountered a world completely different from the Bikini Bottom he knew. The ocean floor was barren and primitive. There were no buildings, no restaurants, no clarinet music. Just rocks, caves, and a few simple creatures trying to survive. But Squidward, being Squidward, had brought something with him from the future: his jellyfishing net. The primitive creatures who lived during this time had never seen anything like it. They had never imagined the concept of catching jellyfish for fun. But when Squidward, attempting to explain himself, or perhaps just out of frustration, demonstrated how to catch a jellyfish with the net, he accidentally created the sport of jellyfishing. The primitive creatures watched with wonder as Squidward swung the net through the water and caught a jellyfish. It was the first time in history that anyone had done this intentionally. Before Squidward's accidental invention, jellyfish were just another creature floating through the ocean. After this moment, they became part of a sport, a pastime, something to pursue for enjoyment. Squidward had no idea that this simple action would echo through thousands of years, eventually becoming SpongeBob and Patrick's favorite activity. He was just trying to get back to his own time, but his brief visit to 8000 BC left a permanent mark on history. After Squidward vanished back into the time stream, leaving the primitive creatures with their new sport, nearly 2000 more years passed. The ocean continued to change slowly. Species evolved, adapted, and developed. And around 6000 BC, 3 particular creatures were about to make discoveries that would shape the future of civilization itself. These 3 creatures lived in what we would recognize as the area that would become Bikini Bottom, though it looked nothing like the city we know today. Their names were Spongegar, Patar, and Squog. If these names sound familiar, there's a good reason. Spongegar was the prehistoric ancestor of SpongeBob SquarePants. Patar was the ancestor of Patrick Star, and Squog, with his long nose and permanent frown, was clearly the ancient grandfather of Squidward tentacles. The episode Ugh shows us exactly what happened when these 3 primitive creatures encountered something that would change their world forever. Spongegar and Patar were simple creatures. They spent their days doing what primitive beings do, searching for food, avoiding danger, and trying to survive. They didn't have language as we know it. They communicated through grunts, gestures, and primitive sounds. They didn't have tools, houses, or any of the comforts that their distant descendants would enjoy. They lived in caves, ate whatever they could find, and their biggest concern was making it through each day alive. Squog, on the other hand, was slightly more advanced. He had discovered something amazing, though he didn't fully understand what he had found. One day, perhaps by accident or perhaps through careful observation, Squog created fire. In the prehistoric ocean, fire was almost impossible to create and even harder to maintain. But Squog had managed it somehow, and he guarded his fire jealously, knowing instinctively that it was valuable, even if he couldn't explain why. Fire provided warmth, even underwater. Fire provided light in the darkness of the deep ocean. Fire made Squog powerful in a world where power was hard to come by. He didn't want to share it with anyone, especially not with the 2 primitive creatures who kept bothering him. But Spongegar and Patar were fascinated by the fire. They had never seen anything like it. The bright light, the warmth, the way it danced and flickered. It was mesmerizing. Spongegar and Patar tried to get fire from Squog, but he refused. He pushed them away, protected his precious discovery, and made it clear that the fire was his and his alone. So the 2 friends had to figure out how to make fire themselves. They tried everything they could think of. They banged rocks together. They rubbed sticks. They attempted to recreate whatever process Squog had used. And eventually, through trial and error, and perhaps a bit of luck, they succeeded. The moment Spongegar and Patar created their own fire was a turning point in prehistoric history. Suddenly, fire wasn't a secret held by one creature. It was knowledge that could be shared, reproduced, and spread. Other creatures could learn how to make fire. They could use it for warmth, for cooking, for light, for protection. The discovery of fire by multiple creatures meant that civilization, in its most basic form, could begin to develop. But the 3 prehistoric ancestors didn't stop with fire. Once they had warmth and light, they began to experiment with other new concepts. Spongegar discovered bubble blowing, creating simple bubbles just like his descendant SpongeBob would do millions of years later. This wasn't just play. Bubbles served practical purposes in the underwater world. They could carry objects, provide transportation, and create temporary shelters. The fact that Spongegar's ancestor discovered this so early suggests that bubble blowing might be an instinct passed down through the SquarePants family line. With fire came the ability to cook food, making it warmer and, in many cases, safer to eat. Before fire, the prehistoric creatures ate everything raw and cold. After fire, they could heat their meals, making them more enjoyable and easier to digest. This simple change improved their quality of life significantly. They lived longer, grew stronger, and had more energy to explore and discover new things. The three creatures also began to develop the earliest forms of art. We see in the episode Ugh that they created primitive drawings and attempted to express themselves creatively. Art, even in its most basic form, represents abstract thinking. It shows that these creatures weren't just surviving anymore. They were thinking about beauty, expression, and leaving their mark on the world. They were beginning to develop culture. Perhaps most significantly, the discovery of fire and these other advancements led to the first known conflict in the region. Spongegar and Patar fought with Squog over resources, territory, and fire itself. This wasn't just animals competing for food. This was something more organized, more intentional. It was possibly the first warlike conflict in the area that would become Bikini Bottom. The episode shows them engaging in what looks like actual combat, with strategies and weapons made from whatever materials they could find. This conflict is important because it establishes a pattern that would repeat throughout Bikini Bottom's history. The area has always been a place where different groups compete, clash, and struggle for dominance. From the medieval battles between king crabs and plankton amor, to the modern rivalry between Mr. Krabs and plankton, conflict has been part of Bikini Bottom's story since the very beginning. Spongegar, Patar, and Squog started that tradition 6,000 years before the Common Era. These three prehistoric creatures didn't know they were laying the foundation for a future city. They had no concept that thousands of years later, their descendants would live in houses, work at restaurants, and drive boats along roads. They were just trying to survive, and perhaps make their lives a little bit better. But their discoveries, fire, bubble blowing, warm food, art, and yes, even conflict, were the building blocks that made civilization possible. After this era, things would continue to change. The primitive creatures would evolve. Their descendants would grow more intelligent, develop language, create tools, and build societies. The empty ocean floor would slowly transform into something more organized, more structured. Communities would form, rules would be established, and eventually, the area would develop into something recognizable as a city. But none of that would have been possible without these prehistoric foundations. The Atlanteans brought advanced knowledge from the stars and created the oldest bubble as a symbol of their arrival. Squidward's accidental time travel gave the primitive creatures the gift of jellyfishing, creating a sport that would last for thousands of years. And Spongegar, Patar, and Squog discovered fire and the other basic elements that make civilization possible. Each of these events, separated by thousands of years, played a crucial role in creating the world that SpongeBob and his friends would eventually inherit. The prehistoric era of Bikini Bottom wasn't glamorous. There were no Krabby Patties, no clarinet music, no boating school. But it was essential. Every civilization needs a beginning, and this was Bikini Bottom's. From alien visitors to time-traveling accidents to prehistoric discoveries, the foundations were set. The stage was prepared for the next chapter in the city's long history. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. But these prehistoric times were just the beginning. As the years continued to pass and the primitive creatures evolved into more sophisticated beings, they would face new challenges and create new societies. The age of kings and kingdoms was approaching, and with it would come the invention that would define Bikini Bottom forever. But that story belongs to the medieval era that was still thousands of years away. Section 2. Medieval Bikini Bottomshire. Before 12th century to 1199. Thousands of years passed after the prehistoric era ended. The primitive creatures who discovered fire eventually evolved into more intelligent beings. They developed language, built homes, created tools, and formed communities. By the time we reached the medieval period, the empty ocean floor had transformed into something entirely different. The area that would one day be called Bikini Bottom now had a name: Bikini Bottomshire. It had a ruler, a castle, citizens, and all the structures of a proper kingdom. But most importantly, it was about to witness the invention of the most important recipe in its entire history. We know about medieval Bikini Bottomshire because of what happened in the episode Dunces and Dragons. SpongeBob and Patrick were attending a jousting tournament at Medieval Moments, a restaurant that recreates medieval times for entertainment. During the show, they were participating in a jousting match when something went wrong. They were accidentally launched through the air, flew into a magical portal, and found themselves transported back in time. They didn't just travel a few years back. They went all the way to medieval Bikini, Bottomshire, landing directly in the middle of the actual Middle Ages. When SpongeBob and Patrick emerged from the portal, confused and dizzy, they found themselves in a world completely unlike the Bikini Bottom they knew. There were no cars, no electricity, no modern buildings. Instead, they saw a medieval kingdom, complete with a massive stone castle, knights in armor, and citizens dressed in old-fashioned clothing. The buildings were made of stone and wood. The roads were dirt paths, and towering above everything else was King Krab's castle, a fortress that dominated the entire kingdom. The castle was enormous, with tall towers, thick stone walls, and flags bearing the royal symbol flying from every peak. Inside the castle lived the kingdom's ruler, King Krabs, and his daughter, Princess Pearl Krabs. King Krabs looked remarkably similar to Eugene H. Krabs, the owner of the Krusty Krab in modern times. This wasn't a coincidence. King Krabs was Mr. Krabs' direct ancestor, and the family resemblance was unmistakable. He had the same eyes, the same claws, and most importantly, the same love of money and treasure that his descendant would inherit thousands of years later. Princess Pearl Krabs was the king's beloved daughter. She lived in the castle with her father and enjoyed all the luxuries that came with being royalty. The castle had beautiful stained glass windows that depicted an ancient prophecy, a prophecy that would become very important when SpongeBob and Patrick arrived. There was also a dungeon deep beneath the castle where prisoners were kept. Working in the castle was a poor musician named Squidly Tentacles, the ancestor of Squidward. Squidly played music for the royal court, but he wasn't treated very well. In fact, at one point during the story, he was thrown into the dungeon for a short time, showing that life wasn't easy even for those who worked inside the castle walls. But King Krab's kingdom faced a serious threat. An evil wizard named Planktonamor terrorized Bikini Bottomshire with his dark magic and cruel schemes. Planktonamor was small, just like his descendant Sheldon J. Plankton, but he was powerful and dangerous. He had magical abilities that allowed him to cast spells, control creatures, and cause destruction throughout the kingdom. The citizens of Bikini Bottomshire lived in fear of what Planktonamor might do next. The conflict between King Krabs and Planktonamor wasn't just a simple disagreement between two individuals. It was a full-scale war between good and evil, between the lawful king and the wicked wizard. Planktonamor wanted to overthrow King Krabs, take control of the kingdom, and rule Bikini Bottomshire with an iron fist. He would stop at nothing to achieve his goals, using every trick and spell in his arsenal to defeat the king and his knights. One of Planktonamor's most terrifying weapons was the dragon jellyfish. This wasn't a normal jellyfish, like the ones that float peacefully through jellyfish fields in modern times. This was a massive, fire-breathing monster that combined the stinging power of a jellyfish with the size and ferocity of a dragon. The dragon jellyfish served Planktonamor loyally, attacking the kingdom on his command and spreading fear throughout the land. Knights tried to defeat it, but none succeeded. The creature seemed unstoppable. The situation grew worse when Planktonamor managed to kidnap Princess Pearl Krabs. He took her from the safety of the castle and held her prisoner, knowing that King Krabs would do anything to get his daughter back. The king was devastated. He loved his daughter more than anything, even more than his treasure. He immediately called for help, promising rewards to anyone who could rescue Pearl and defeat both Planktonamor and the dragon jellyfish. This is where the ancient prophecy became important. Inside King Krab's castle, on the stained glass windows, there were images depicting a prophecy about two heroes who would one day come to save the kingdom. These heroes were described as the Chosen Ones, two warriors who would arrive when the kingdom needed them most. They would rescue the princess, defeat the evil wizard, and restore peace to Bikini Bottomshire. For years, this prophecy had been just a story, something people talked about but didn't really believe would come true. But then SpongeBob and Patrick fell through the time portal and landed in medieval Bikini Bottomshire. When the citizens saw them, they immediately recognized that the prophecy was coming true. SpongeBob and Patrick looked exactly like the heroes depicted in the stained glass windows. They were the chosen ones the prophecy had predicted. The kingdom's hope was suddenly renewed. Maybe, just maybe, these two strange warriors could actually save Princess Pearl and defeat Planktonomor. King Krab summoned SpongeBob and Patrick to the castle. He explained the situation, showed them the prophecy, and begged them to rescue his daughter. SpongeBob and Patrick were confused and frightened. They had no idea how they had traveled back in time, and they certainly didn't feel like legendary heroes. But they agreed to help because that's what heroes do, even when they're scared. The two time travelers set out on their quest to save Princess Pearl. They faced many dangers along the way, battling Planktonomor's forces and searching for where the wizard had hidden the princess. Eventually, they confronted the dragon jellyfish itself. The battle was fierce and terrifying, but SpongeBob and Patrick discovered that even the most fearsome monsters have weaknesses. Through courage, teamwork, and perhaps a bit of luck, they managed to defeat the dragon jellyfish, removing one of Planktonomor's most powerful weapons. With the dragon jellyfish defeated, SpongeBob and Patrick pushed forward to rescue Princess Pearl. They found where Plankton Amor was keeping her prisoner and fought their way through his defenses. The evil wizard threw everything he had at them, using his dark magic to try to stop the chosen ones from completing their mission. But SpongeBob and Patrick persevered, driven by their desire to help Princess Pearl and King Krabs. Finally, after a long and difficult battle, SpongeBob and Patrick succeeded. They rescued Princess Pearl from Plankton Amor's clutches and brought her safely back to King Krab's castle. The king was overjoyed to see his daughter alive and well. The entire kingdom celebrated the return of their princess and the defeat of the evil wizard who had terrorized them for so long. Plankton Amor's reign of terror was over, and peace was restored to Bikini Bottomshire. But the most significant event of this medieval era didn't happen during the dramatic rescue or the epic battles. It happened in the castle kitchen, where King Krabs was working on something special. In the year 1199, King Krabs invented the Krabby Patty. This wasn't just any food. This was a burger so delicious, so perfect, that it would become legendary. King Krabs created a secret recipe for this burger, carefully writing down the ingredients and the exact method for preparing it. The Krabby Patty that King Krabs invented in 1199 was the same Krabby Patty that would make the Krusty Krab famous thousands of years later. The recipe King Krabs created became his family's most precious possession. He understood that this recipe was valuable beyond measure, that whoever possessed it could create food that people would travel great distances to eat. So he made a crucial decision. He would keep the recipe secret. Only members of the Krabs family would know the ingredients and the preparation method. This secret recipe became part of the Krabs family legacy. It was passed down from generation to generation, father to son, each one guarding it carefully and never revealing its contents to outsiders. For over 800 years, the recipe remained a closely guarded family secret. Think about that for a moment. 800 years. Entire civilizations rose and fell during that time. Kingdoms came and went. Technology advanced from medieval times to the modern era. But through all those changes, through all those centuries, the Krabs family kept the Krabby Patty recipe secret. We know the recipe was kept secret for over 800 years because this information appears in the episode Dunces and Dragons and is confirmed in other episodes that reference the recipe's ancient origins. The episode makes it clear that King Krabs invented the Krabby Patty in 1199, and that the recipe has been a Krabs family secret ever since. This means that when Eugene A. Krabs opened the Krusty Krab in modern times, he was using the exact same recipe his ancestor created in medieval Bikini Bottomshire. The invention of the Krabby Patty in 1199 would have consequences that echoed through the centuries. It wasn't just a good burger. It was the foundation of the Krabs family fortune and reputation. It was the reason why Mr. Krab's restaurant would become the most popular eating establishment in Bikini Bottom. It was the prize that Plankton would spend his entire life trying to steal. Everything that happens at the Krusty Krab in modern times, all the success and all the conflict, traces back to what King Krabs created in his medieval kitchen over 800 years ago. After SpongeBob and Patrick rescued Princess Pearl and witnessed these medieval events, they eventually found their way back to their own time. They returned to modern Bikini Bottom, leaving medieval Bikini Bottomshire behind. But the kingdom they left continued to exist and develop. King Krabs continued to rule with his secret recipe safely in his possession. The citizens of Bikini Bottomshire went about their lives, farming, trading, and building their community. The medieval period was a time of monarchy and magic, of knights and castles, of heroes and villains. It was when Bikini Bottomshire established itself as a true kingdom, with a royal family, a government, and all the structures of medieval society. The stained glass windows in King Krab's castle proved that the kingdom had prophecies and legends. The existence of Planktonomore showed that magic was real and powerful during this time. The dragon jellyfish demonstrated that the ocean contained creatures far more dangerous than the friendly jellyfish of modern times. But most importantly, the medieval era gave Bikini Bottom the Krabby Patty. Without King Krab's invention in 1199, there would be no Krusty Krab. Without the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob would never have become a fry cook. Without SpongeBob as a fry cook, the entire story of modern Bikini Bottom would be completely different. The Krabby Patty recipe is the thread that connects medieval Bikini Bottomshire to the city we know today. It proves that some things, when they're truly special, can last for centuries. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. The medieval period eventually came to an end, as all eras do. The details of how King Krab's reign ended aren't completely clear from the episodes, but we know that sometime after 1199, the kingdom began to change. The Krabs family's power would not last forever, and new rulers would eventually take control of Bikini Bottomshire. The age of kings and dynasties was approaching, bringing with it new families who would fight for the right to rule the ocean floor. Section 3. The Rise and Fall of Royal Dynasties, 1304 to 1804. After King Krabs' reign ended, Bikini Bottomshire entered a new chapter in its history. The Krabs family, despite inventing the legendary Krabby Patty recipe, would not hold on to power forever. In fact, they lost control of the kingdom entirely. What followed were 500 years of changing rulers, different royal families fighting for the throne, and the rise and fall of dynasties that each left their mark on the city. This period shows us that even the most powerful families can lose everything, and that control of Bikini Bottomshire was always up for grabs to whoever was strong enough or clever enough to seize it. Around the year 1304, something major happened. The Krabs dynasty, which had ruled Bikini Bottomshire since medieval times, lost the throne. We don't know exactly how it happened from the episodes. Maybe there was a war. Maybe the family line died out. Maybe another family simply became more powerful and took over. What we do know for certain, based on information from the SpongeBob timeline documented by fans using details from various episodes, is that the first Neptune dynasty came to power around this time. The Neptune family was completely different from the Krabs family. Where King Krabs had been focused on his castle, his daughter, and his secret recipe, the Neptune rulers saw themselves as gods of the sea. They didn't just want to rule Bikini Bottomshire. They believed they had a divine right to rule the entire ocean. The first Neptune dynasty established itself as the supreme power, and their influence reached far beyond the borders of what had been King Krab's kingdom. When the Neptune dynasty took over, they brought massive changes to how Bikini Bottomshire was governed. They built grand palaces and temples. They established themselves not just as kings, but as divine beings who deserved worship and respect from every creature in the ocean. The name Neptune became sacred. Fish started using phrases like, "Dear Neptune," and "Oh my Neptune," the same way people might say, "Dear God," or "Oh my goodness." The Neptune dynasty didn't just rule Bikini Bottomshire. They became part of the culture, part of the language, part of everyday life. The Neptune rulers were powerful in ways that went beyond normal kingship. They had magical abilities, or at least that's what people believed. They could supposedly control the weather, command sea creatures, and use their famous tridents to shoot lightning and fire. Whether these powers were real magic or just very advanced skills didn't matter to the common folk. What mattered was that the Neptune dynasty seemed unstoppable. They ruled with absolute authority, and nobody dared to challenge them. But there was one thing the Neptune dynasty didn't have. When the Krabs family lost power, they lost their castle, their kingdom, and their throne. But they never lost the Krabby Patty recipe. That secret stayed within the Krabs family, passed down through the generations, even though they were no longer royalty. The recipe that King Krabs had invented in 1199 remained a family treasure, hidden away and protected, waiting for the day when a Krabs family member might be able to use it again. The first Neptune dynasty ruled for hundreds of years. During this time, Bikini Bottomshire continued to grow and develop. More buildings were constructed, the population increased. Trade routes were established with other underwater cities and kingdoms. The Neptune rulers maintained order and peace, though they could be harsh and demanding. They expected complete obedience from their subjects, and anyone who disrespected the royal family faced serious punishment. Life under the Neptune dynasty was stable but strict. The rulers made all the important decisions. They controlled the laws, the military, and the economy. Common citizens had very little say in how things were run. You followed the rules, paid your taxes, showed respect to the royal family, and hoped you never attracted their negative attention. If you did what you were told, life was okay. If you caused trouble, the consequences could be severe. Then, around the year 1701, something unexpected happened. The Neptune dynasty lost power, and a new family took control of Bikini Bottomshire. The Star family rose to prominence and claimed the throne for themselves. This was Patrick Star's family line, the ancestors of the pink starfish who would one day become SpongeBob's best friend. The information about the Star dynasty comes from the episode Rule of Dumb, which reveals details about Patrick's royal heritage. In Rule of Dumb, Patrick discovers that he's actually royalty. He finds out that his ancestors once ruled Bikini Bottom, and through a complicated series of inheritance laws, he's actually the rightful king. When Patrick learns this, he gets a crown and starts acting like royalty, making ridiculous demands and bossing everyone around. The episode is played for comedy, but it reveals something important about Bikini Bottom's history. The Star family really did rule the city at one point, and they had legitimate claim to the throne. The Star dynasty that began around 1701 was very different from the Neptune dynasty, where the Neptunes were powerful gods who ruled with divine authority. The Stars were more down to earth. They didn't claim to be gods. They were just a family who happened to gain enough power and support to take control of the kingdom. Maybe they won a war. Maybe they made political alliances. Maybe the Neptune dynasty had become weak and the Stars simply stepped in to fill the power gap. However it happened, the Stars were now in charge. We don't know a lot of details about how the Star dynasty ruled Bikini Bottomshire. The episodes don't give us many specifics about what life was like under their reign, but based on Patrick's behavior in Rule of Dumb, we can guess that the Star rulers might have been a bit chaotic and unpredictable. Patrick, when he becomes king, immediately starts making weird rules and acting on whatever random thought pops into his head. If his ancestors were anything like him, the Star dynasty might have been an interesting and unusual time in Bikini Bottomshire's history. The Star dynasty didn't last nearly as long as the Neptune dynasty. They only held power for about 100 years. By 1804, their reign was over. Once again, the throne changed hands, and once again, a Neptune ruler took control. The second Neptune dynasty began, marking the return of the family that had once ruled as gods of the sea. The second Neptune dynasty was similar to the first in many ways. The new Neptune rulers claimed the same divine authority as their ancestors. They used the same symbols of power, including the famous trident and crown. They expected the same level of respect and obedience from their subjects. In many ways, it was like turning back the clock to before the Star Dynasty had ever existed. But the second Neptune dynasty also faced different challenges than the first. The world was changing. Bikini Bottomshire was growing larger and more complex. There were more citizens, more businesses, more problems to solve. The simple style of ruling that had worked hundreds of years ago didn't always fit the needs of a more modern society. The Neptune rulers had to adapt, had to find new ways to govern, while still maintaining their image as powerful, godlike beings. One thing that stayed consistent through all these dynasty changes was the location of power. Whether it was the Krabs, the Neptunes, or the Stars, the rulers of Bikini Bottomshire always maintained some kind of palace or castle. These weren't just homes, they were symbols of authority, physical proof that someone was in charge. The common citizens could look up at these grand buildings and know exactly who held power over them. Throughout these 500 years of changing dynasties, regular life in Bikini Bottomshire continued. Farmers grew food, fishermen caught fish, merchants sold goods, builders constructed new homes and shops. Most ordinary citizens probably didn't care too much about which family sat on the throne, as long as there was peace and order. The common folk just wanted to live their lives, support their families, and stay out of trouble. But these dynasty changes did affect everyone in subtle ways. Different rulers meant different laws, different priorities, different ways of doing things. When the Neptunes ruled, there might have been more focus on grand ceremonies and religious observance. When the Stars ruled, things might have been more relaxed and casual. When a new dynasty took over, people had to adjust to new expectations and new rules. The Krabs family watched all of this from the sidelines. They weren't royalty anymore. They weren't making the big decisions, but they still had their secret, the recipe that King Krabs had invented back in 1199. Through the entire first Neptune dynasty, through the entire Star dynasty, through the beginning of the second Neptune dynasty, the Krabs family protected that recipe. They passed it down from parent to child, generation after generation, keeping it safe and secret. By the time the second Neptune dynasty was firmly established in the early 1800s, Bikini Bottomshire had been through a lot of changes. The city had been ruled by 3 different dynasties. It had seen the rise and fall of royal families. It had experienced different styles of government and different kinds of rulers. But through all those changes, the basic structure of society remained similar. There were still rulers and subjects, rich and poor, powerful families, and common citizens. The period of dynasties teaches us something important about Bikini Bottomshire. Power in this city was never permanent. No family, no matter how strong or divine they claimed to be, could hold on to the throne forever. The Krabs lost it. The first Neptune dynasty lost it. The Star dynasty lost it. Even the second Neptune dynasty would eventually lose it too, though that wouldn't happen for a while yet. This constant change of power created an interesting culture in Bikini Bottomshire. People learned not to get too attached to any particular ruler. They learned to adapt when new dynasties came to power. They learned that today's king might be tomorrow's forgotten ancestor. This flexibility, this ability to adjust to changing leadership, became part of the city's character. Meanwhile, the world outside Bikini Bottomshire was changing too. Other underwater cities were developing. New technologies were being invented. Different cultures were meeting and mixing. Bikini Bottomshire wasn't isolated anymore. It was becoming part of a larger ocean community, connected to other places through trade, travel, and communication. The dynasty period also established something that would last long after the royal families were gone. It established the idea that Bikini Bottomshire was an important place, a city worth fighting over, a location that mattered in the larger underwater world. Why else would different families spend centuries battling for control of it? The city must have had something valuable, something worth having. Maybe it was the location. Maybe it was the resources. Maybe it was just the prestige of ruling a well-established kingdom. Whatever the reason, Bikini Bottomshire mattered, and that reputation would continue long into the future. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. By the early 1800s, as the second Neptune dynasty settled into power, Bikini Bottomshire had been ruled by kings and dynasties for over 600 years. But things were about to change again. The age of dynasties and medieval-style kingdoms was slowly coming to an end. A new era was approaching, an era that would look very different from anything that had come before. The Wild West was coming to the ocean floor, bringing with it cowboys, outlaws, and a whole new way of life. Section 4. The Wild West Era, 1800s. As the 1800s rolled around, Bikini Bottomshire went through another huge transformation. The age of kings and royal dynasties was fading away, and something completely different was taking its place. The ocean floor was entering its Wild West period, a time of cowboys, outlaws, sheriffs, and frontier justice. During this era, the city even changed its name. It wasn't called Bikini Bottomshire anymore. Now it was known as Bikini Gulch, and later, for a dark period of time, it became Deadeye Gulch. This was a rough and tumble time when the strongest and bravest citizens had to step up to protect their town from dangerous criminals who wanted to take over. We know about this Wild West period because of the episode Pest of the West. In this episode, SpongeBob discovers that he had an ancestor who lived during the Wild West era. That ancestor was named SpongeBuck SquarePants, and he looked almost exactly like SpongeBob, just dressed in cowboy clothes with a hat and boots. SpongeBuck's story is one of the most important tales from this time period, showing us what life was like when Bikini Gulch needed a hero to save it from evil. The episode starts in modern times, with SpongeBob visiting a museum that has exhibits about the old West days of Bikini Bottom. There's a whole section dedicated to SpongeBuck SquarePants, who's remembered as a legendary hero and the greatest sheriff the town ever had. SpongeBob is amazed to learn about his ancestor and wants to know everything about him. The museum shows SpongeBuck's story through displays, artifacts, and old records, giving us a window into what Bikini Gulch was like during the 1800s. Around 1895, Bikini Gulch was a typical frontier town. There were saloons where folks gathered to drink and socialize. There were shops selling supplies and goods. There were banks where people kept their money, though those banks were often targets for robbers. The buildings were made of wood, with swinging doors and wooden sidewalks. Instead of modern boats driving on roads, people rode seahorses to get from place to place. Everything had that classic Wild West feel, just underwater instead of in the desert. Life in Bikini Gulch wasn't easy. It was a rough town where the law didn't always have control. People had to be tough to survive. They worked hard, whether they were ranchers, shopkeepers, or saloon workers. Money was often scarce. Danger lurked around every corner. And the biggest danger of all came in the form of outlaws, criminals who rode into town to steal, cheat, and terrorize honest citizens. The worst outlaw in the entire region was a villain named Deadeye. He was absolutely terrifying, a ruthless criminal who seemed unstoppable. Deadeye and his gang rode into towns, took whatever they wanted, and hurt anyone who tried to stop them. He had already taken over several other towns in the area, forcing out the sheriffs and making himself the boss. Once Deadeye controlled a town, he ruled it with an iron fist, taking money from the citizens and making everyone live in fear. Deadeye had his sights set on Bikini Gulch. He wanted to add it to his growing collection of conquered towns. When word spread that Deadeye was heading their way, the citizens of Bikini Gulch panicked. They knew what happened to towns that Deadeye took over. They knew about the fear and suffering he caused, but they had no idea how to stop him. Deadeye was too strong, too mean, too dangerous. Regular citizens didn't stand a chance against him and his gang. Into this desperate situation came SpongeBuck SquarePants. SpongeBuck wasn't originally from Bikini Gulch. He was just passing through town, probably looking for work or heading somewhere else. SpongeBuck was friendly and optimistic, always seeing the best in people and trying to help wherever he could. He wasn't a fighter or a gunslinger. He was just a regular guy who happened to be in the right place at the right time. When SpongeBuck arrived in Bikini Gulch, he found the whole town in a state of panic. People were boarding up their windows, hiding their valuables, and preparing for Deadeye's arrival. The town didn't have a strong sheriff to protect them. They didn't have anyone brave enough to stand up to the outlaw. They were completely defenseless, waiting for the inevitable moment when Deadeye would ride in and take over. SpongeBuck couldn't stand seeing these good people so scared and helpless. Even though he had no experience fighting outlaws, even though he had every reason to just ride away and avoid the danger, he decided to stay. He decided to help. He told the citizens of Bikini Gulch that he would face Deadeye and protect the town. The citizens were grateful, but also worried. SpongeBuck seemed nice, but could he really defeat the most dangerous outlaw in the West? When Deadeye finally arrived in Bikini Gulch, he rode in expecting an easy victory. He'd taken over so many towns that he probably thought this would be just another conquest. But SpongeBuck stood in his way, refusing to let the outlaw terrorize the town. Deadeye laughed at first. This friendly, optimistic stranger didn't look like much of a threat. But SpongeBuck had something that Deadeye didn't expect: courage, determination, and the support of the whole town behind him. The confrontation between SpongeBuck and Deadeye was intense. The details of exactly how the fight went aren't completely spelled out in the episode, but we know the outcome. Through a combination of bravery, quick thinking, and probably a bit of luck, SpongeBuck managed to defeat Deadeye. He drove the outlaw out of Bikini Gulch, saving the town from being conquered and protecting all the citizens from Deadeye's cruel reign. After defeating Deadeye, SpongeBuck became a hero. The grateful citizens of Bikini Gulch asked him to stay and become their sheriff. They needed someone brave and honest to protect them, and SpongeBuck had proven he was exactly that kind of person. SpongeBuck accepted the position, becoming the sheriff of Bikini Gulch around 1895. He wore a sheriff's badge with pride, knowing that he was helping to keep good people safe. As sheriff, SpongeBuck brought law and order to Bikini Gulch. He made sure the town was safe for families. He stopped criminals from causing trouble. He helped turn Bikini Gulch from a frightened frontier town into a place where people could live and work without constant fear. The citizens loved and respected him, knowing that Sheriff SpongeBuck would always be there to protect them. The episode Pest of the West shows that SpongeBuck became legendary. His story was told and retold over the years. People never forgot how this brave stranger had saved their town from Deadeye. Eventually, statues were built in his honor. His name went into the history books. The museum in modern Bikini Bottom has an entire section dedicated to him, proving that his heroism was remembered long after he was gone. But SpongeBuck wasn't the only important ancestor from this time period. The episode also mentions great-great-grandpappy Krabs, an ancestor of Mr. Krabs who lived during the Wild West era. Grandpappy Krabs was known for inventing something called the spendthrift billfold system, though the exact details of what this system was aren't clearly explained in the episodes. What we do know is that Grandpappy Krabs was already showing the family trait of being clever with money, a trait that Eugene H. Krabs would inherit many generations later. There's also a mention of another ancestor from around this time named Patrick Revere. Based on the name and the time period, he was likely an ancestor of Patrick Star. The name Revere connects him to Paul Revere from American history, suggesting that Patrick Revere might have done something similar to warning people about danger. The episodes mention that Patrick Revere warned people about something called the mollusks, though we don't get many details about what exactly happened or why the mollusks were dangerous. Another fascinating character from this era was Redbeard Krabs, who appeared in the episode Grandpappy the Pirate. This episode takes place around 1897, near the end of the Wild West period. Redbeard Krabs was a pirate, and he was Mr. Krabs' grandfather. The episode shows Redbeard coming to visit his grandson and trying to get him to join the pirate life. Redbeard had a whole pirate crew and lived the traditional pirate lifestyle, sailing the seas and searching for treasure. The existence of Redbeard Krabs in 1897 shows us something interesting about this time period. While some parts of the ocean were experiencing the Wild West cowboy culture, Other parts still had pirates operate. Maybe different regions had different styles. Or maybe pirates and cowboys existed at the same time in different areas. Either way, the late 1800s was clearly a time of adventure, danger, and colorful characters throughout the ocean. The Wild West era gradually came to an end as the 1800s turned into the 1900s. The frontier lifestyle started fading away. Towns became more civilized and organized. The rough and tumble days of outlaws and sheriffs gave way to a more modern society with proper police forces and established laws. Bikini Gulch eventually changed its name again, dropping the Gulch and becoming simply Bikini Bottom, the name it would keep into the modern era. This transformation from Wild West town to modern city didn't happen overnight. It took years, probably decades, for Bikini Bottom to fully leave behind its frontier past and become the bustling city we know today. But the change was inevitable. Technology was advancing, the population was growing. The old ways of doing things just didn't work anymore for a larger, more complex society. The Wild West era left its mark on Bikini Bottom's culture, though. The city never forgot its frontier roots. Stories like SpongeBob's heroism were passed down through generations. The spirit of standing up to bullies and protecting your community, which SpongeBob had shown when he faced Deadeye, became part of what Bikini Bottom was all about. Even in modern times, citizens would remember that their city had once been a tough frontier town that survived dangerous outlaws. The Krabs family also carried lessons from this era forward. Great-great-grandpappy Krabs and Redbeard Krabs showed that the family had always been resourceful and determined to make their way in the world, whether through clever financial systems or pirate adventures. These traits would definitely show up later in Eugene H. Krabs, who combined his ancestors' money skills with their determination to build the most successful restaurant in Bikini Bottom. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. By the time the Wild West era ended, Bikini Bottom was ready for something new. The days of sheriffs and outlaws were over. The frontier was settled. The town was growing into a real city with businesses, homes, schools, and all the things that make a community work. The stage was set for the modern era, when individual citizens would build their fortunes not through outlawry or gunfights, but through hard work, business, and yes, secret recipes that had been waiting in family vaults for over 700 years. Section 5. The Modern Founding, 1954 to 1999. The 1900s brought Bikini Bottom into the modern era. The days of Wild West outlaws and frontier justice were over. Now the city was filling up with businesses, homes, schools, and restaurants. Cars called boats drove down paved roads. Buildings stood tall in the downtown area. Life was becoming more organized, more comfortable, and more like the Bikini Bottom that SpongeBob would eventually call home. But before SpongeBob could flip his first Krabby Patty, several important people had to be born, grow up, and set the stage for everything that was about to happen. On October 9th, 1954, someone very important was born. His name was Squidward Tentacles, and he would grow up to become the cashier at the Krusty Krab. We know Squidward's exact birthday because it's mentioned in episodes of the show. October 9th, 1954 is the day that brought Squidward into the world, making him much older than SpongeBob and Patrick. Even as a baby, Squidward was probably already grumpy about something. Squidward grew up in Bikini Bottom, learning to play the clarinet and dreaming of becoming a famous artist and musician. He wasn't particularly talented at either of these things, but that didn't stop him from trying. As a young squid, Squidward had big dreams. He imagined himself performing in fancy concert halls, creating beautiful artwork that everyone would admire, and living a sophisticated life far away from annoying neighbors. During his school years, something happened that would bother Squidward for the rest of his life. In 1971, while attending high school, Squidward met another squid named Squilliam Fancyson. Squilliam was everything Squidward wanted to be. He was rich, talented, successful, and popular. The two squids were in band class together, and from the very start, they couldn't stand each other. A rivalry formed between Squidward and Squilliam that would last for decades. Every time they met after high school, Squilliam would brag about his success, while Squidward felt like a failure. This rivalry, which started in 1971, is shown in episodes like Squilliam Returns and Band Geeks. While Squidward was dealing with his high school rivalry, another important character was being born. On July 14th, 1986, a baby sponge came into the world. His parents named him SpongeBob SquarePants. We know SpongeBob's exact birthday because it appears on his driver's license in the episode Sleepy Time. July 14th, 1986 is the day that would eventually change Bikini Bottom forever, though nobody knew it at the time. SpongeBob grew up very differently than Squidward had. Where Squidward was always grumpy and serious, SpongeBob was cheerful and optimistic about everything. He loved life, loved making friends, and found joy in the simplest things. Even as a kid, SpongeBob was probably the happiest person anyone had ever met. He annoyed some people with his constant enthusiasm, but he also brought smiles to many faces. Around the same time SpongeBob was growing up, another key player in Bikini Bottom's future was making plans. Eugene H. Krabs had been born earlier, though we don't know his exact birthday from the episodes. What we do know is that Mr. Krabs served in some kind of war when he was younger. The episodes refer to the war multiple times, showing that Mr. Krabs had a military background. After the war ended, Mr. Krabs came back to Bikini Bottom and fell into a deep depression. He didn't know what to do with his life. He felt lost and hopeless. But Mr. Krabs had something that would pull him out of that depression. He had inherited the Krabby Patty recipe from his family. Remember, this recipe had been passed down through the Krabs family since King Krabs invented it way back in 1199. For over 700 years, the recipe had been a family secret, waiting for someone to use it. Eugene H. Krabs decided he would be that someone. He would open a restaurant and serve Krabby Patties to the citizens of Bikini Bottom. The story of how Mr. Krabs got his restaurant varies depending on which episode you watch. In the episode Krusty Krab training video, we learn one version of the story. According to this episode, there was an old building that used to be a retirement home called the Rusty Krab. After Mr. Krabs came back from the war and got through his depression, he bought this old, bankrupt retirement home. It was run down and empty, but Mr. Krabs saw potential in it. He decided to turn it into a restaurant. Mr. Krabs didn't have a lot of money to spend on fancy renovations, so he did the cheapest thing possible. He took some paint and painted a big letter K over the R in Rusty Krab. Now it said Krusty Krab. That was it. That's how the Krusty Krab got its name, according to this version of the story. It was simple, cheap, and very much like something Mr. Krabs would do. But there's another version of the Krusty Krab's origin story, told in the episode Friend or Foe. This episode shows us that Mr. Krabs and Sheldon J. Plankton were actually childhood friends. They grew up together and went to school together. Despite their size difference, with Plankton being tiny and Krabs being much bigger, they got along well when they were kids. One day, they decided to go into the burger business together. There was a place called Stinky Burgers that had just closed down, and young Krabs and Plankton thought they could do better. They tried making burgers, but their burgers were terrible. Nobody wanted to eat them. The two friends started arguing about whose fault it was that the burgers tasted so bad. During their fight, they accidentally tore their recipe in half. Plankton got the bottom half, which said, "and a pinch of chum." Krabs kept the top half. While they were still arguing, some ingredients fell into the patty batter by accident. Mr. Krabs tasted it and realized he'd discovered something amazing. This was the secret ingredient that made Krabby Patties so delicious. Their friendship ended that day. Mr. Krabs went off to start his own restaurant with his new, perfect recipe. Plankton tried to make burgers with his half of the recipe, but a pinch of chum didn't make good food. In fact, it made terrible food. This is why Plankton's restaurant, the Chum Bucket, serves awful food that nobody wants to eat. And this is why Plankton has spent his entire life trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula. He wants to know what Mr. Krabs discovered that day when the ingredients fell into the batter. There's even a third version, mentioned in Grandpappy the Pirate, which suggests Mr. Krabs inherited the restaurant from his grandfather. All these different stories exist in the show, and they all happened according to different episodes. What matters is that somehow, Mr. Krabs ended up with a restaurant and the secret Krabby Patty recipe that would make him rich. Before Mr. Krabs opened the Krusty Krab, he needed employees. In 1972, 2 people joined the Krusty Krab staff. One was Squidward Tentacles, who was just 18 years old and fresh out of high school. The other was a fry cook named Jim, who became known as the original fry cook. We know about Jim from the episode The Original Fry Cook, which shows that he worked at the Krusty Krab years before SpongeBob ever did. Jim was apparently an amazing fry cook. He made incredible Krabby Patties that customers loved. He and Squidward became good friends while working together. The Krusty Krab had class back then, according to Squidward's memories. The restaurant was fancier, the customers were more refined, and everything seemed better. Jim worked at the Krusty Krab for years, but eventually he quit. The episode suggests he left because Mr. Krabs was too cheap and wouldn't pay him enough money. Jim went on to become rich and successful, driving fancy cars and living the good life. After Jim left, the Krusty Krab went through other employees, but none of them were quite as good as Jim had been. Squidward stayed on as the cashier through all these changes, getting more and more miserable with each passing year. He hated his job, hated his boss, and hated dealing with customers. But he needed the money, so he kept showing up day after day. Meanwhile, Plankton was busy with his own restaurant directly across the street. The Chum Bucket never got any customers because the food was disgusting. Plankton became obsessed with stealing the Krabby Patty formula from Mr. Krabs. In 1979, Plankton made his very first attempt to steal the secret recipe. We know this from the episode Plankton's Army, which shows Plankton looking back at all his failed attempts to get the formula. That first attempt in 1979 didn't work, and neither did any of the hundreds of attempts that followed over the next 20 years. In 1980, something called the Fry Cook Games started. These were competitions where fry cooks from different restaurants competed against each other in cooking challenges. The very first Fry Cook Games was a big deal in Bikini Bottom. Mr. Krabs competed representing the Krusty Krab, and Plankton competed representing the Chum Bucket. Despite being enemies by this point, they were evenly matched. The competition ended with both of them winning gold medals, as shown in the episode The Fry Cook Games. Far away from Bikini Bottom, in the state of Texas on dry land, a squirrel named Sandy Cheeks was growing up. Sandy was smart, strong, and loved science and sports. She became an expert in karate and studied all kinds of scientific subjects. In 1998, Sandy made a big decision. She wanted to explore the ocean and study sea life, so she moved to Bikini Bottom, living inside a special dome filled with air so she could breathe. The episode Chimps Ahoy confirms that Sandy moved to Bikini Bottom in 1998. Sometime between 1998 and 1999, Sandy met SpongeBob. The episode Tea at the Tree Dome shows their first meeting as adults. SpongeBob saw Sandy fighting a giant clam and was immediately impressed. They became friends, and Sandy introduced SpongeBob to her tree dome home. SpongeBob, being a sea sponge, didn't realize he needed water to survive, and almost dried out inside Sandy's air-filled dome. But Sandy saved him, and their friendship was formed. By late 1999, SpongeBob was 13 years old and had a big dream. He wanted to work at the Krusty Krab more than anything else in the world. He had been practicing making Krabby Patties at home. He had studied everything about the restaurant. He knew the Krusty Krab was the finest eating place in all of Bikini Bottom, and he desperately wanted to be part of it. In December 1999, SpongeBob finally got his chance. He went to the Krusty Krab and asked Mr. Krabs for a job as a fry cook. This moment is shown in Help Wanted, the very first episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. Mr. Krabs and Squidward didn't want to hire SpongeBob. He seemed too enthusiastic, too eager, too annoying, so they sent him on what they thought was an impossible task. They told him to get a special spatula from a dangerous place, hoping he would give up and never come back. But while SpongeBob was gone, a huge crowd of hungry anchovies arrived at the Krusty Krab. There were hundreds of them, all demanding food at once. Mr. Krabs and Squidward were completely overwhelmed. They couldn't keep up with all the orders. The restaurant was in chaos, and they were about to be crushed by the angry crowd. Just then, SpongeBob returned with the spatula. He saw what was happening and immediately jumped into action. He started cooking Krabby Patties faster than anyone had ever seen. He made hundreds of perfect patties in minutes, serving every single anchovy and saving Mr. Krabs and Squidward from disaster. Mr. Krabs was amazed. Squidward was shocked, and SpongeBob was hired on the spot. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. That day in December 1999 changed everything. SpongeBob SquarePants became the fry cook at the Krusty Krab, a job he would love more than anything else in the world. The stage was set for all the adventures, all the chaos, and all the stories that would make Bikini Bottom famous. But before we dive into those stories, we need to understand the city itself, the places where all these adventures would happen. Section 6. The geographic heart of Bikini Bottom. Now that we know how Bikini Bottom's most important citizens came together, we need to understand the city itself. Where exactly do all these characters live? What does the city look like? How is everything connected? Bikini Bottom isn't just a random collection of buildings scattered across the ocean floor. It's an actual city with neighborhoods, districts, and famous landmarks that make it special. Understanding the geography of Bikini Bottom helps us see how SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, and everyone else interact with each other every single day. The most important street in all of Bikini Bottom is Conch Street. This single road is where so much of the action happens, and it's where the main characters spend most of their time. Conch Street runs from downtown Bikini Bottom all the way out to the edge of the city. It's not a short street. It stretches for a good distance, connecting different parts of town and serving as the main route for boats traveling through the area. What makes Conch Street so special is what sits along it. Right there on Conch Street, you'll find 3 houses standing in a row. These aren't just any houses. They're the homes of SpongeBob SquarePants, Squidward Tentacles, and Patrick Star. The 3 neighbors live right next to each other, which explains why they're constantly running into each other, and why Squidward can never escape from SpongeBob and Patrick, no matter how hard he tries. SpongeBob's house is impossible to miss. It's a giant pineapple sitting on the ocean floor. The pineapple is orange and yellow, with green leaves sprouting from the top. It has windows, a door, and everything a normal house would have, except it's shaped like a piece of fruit. Inside, SpongeBob has a living room with furniture, a kitchen where he practices making Krabby Patties, a library full of books, and a bedroom upstairs. There's even a bathroom and various other rooms. His pet snail Gary lives there with him, sleeping in a little bed and meowing like a cat even though he's a snail. The story of how SpongeBob got his pineapple house is shown in the episode Truth or Square. When SpongeBob first came to Bikini Bottom looking for a place to live, he didn't have much money. He was standing in an empty lot, trying to figure out what to do, when suddenly a pineapple fell from a boat passing overhead. It dropped right onto the lot, landing perfectly on the ocean floor. SpongeBob saw this as a sign. He moved into the pineapple that very day, making it his home. That lucky accident gave SpongeBob one of the most recognizable houses in all of Bikini Bottom. Right next to SpongeBob's pineapple is Squidward's house. Where SpongeBob's home is cheerful and colorful, Squidward's house is much more serious. It's shaped like an Easter Island head, one of those giant stone statues with the long face and serious expression. The house is gray and imposing, matching Squidward's personality perfectly. Inside, Squidward has decorated everything to reflect his love of art and culture. He has paintings on the walls, sculptures, and of course, his precious clarinet that he plays constantly, despite not being very good at it. Squidward's house has a bedroom upstairs where he sleeps, dreaming of becoming a famous artist and musician. He has a living room where he practices his clarinet and creates his artwork. Everything in Squidward's house is neat and organized, exactly how he likes it. The house represents Squidward's desire to be sophisticated and classy, even though he works at a fast food restaurant and lives next to the most annoying neighbor imaginable. On the other side of SpongeBob's pineapple sits Patrick Star's house. If SpongeBob's house is unusual and Squidward's house is imposing, Patrick's house is just plain simple. It's a rock. Not a house shaped like a rock. Not a rock with windows and doors. Just a big, round rock sitting on the sand. Patrick literally lives under a rock, which is perfect for someone who isn't very smart and doesn't know much about what's going on in the world. Despite being just a rock on the outside, Patrick's house does have some stuff underneath it. There's space under the rock where Patrick has furniture, including a chair and a TV. The episode Patrick's Rock and various other episodes show that Patrick has somehow created living space under his rock, even though it doesn't make much physical sense. But that's okay. This is Bikini Bottom, where giant pineapples can be houses and rocks can have living rooms underneath them. These three houses, sitting in a row on Conch Street, form the heart of the show. SpongeBob can walk a few steps from his pineapple and knock on Squidward's door to say hello. He can walk a few steps the other direction and lift up Patrick's rock to see if his best friend wants to go jellyfishing. Squidward can look out his window and see both of his annoying neighbors right there, which is why he's so miserable all the time. The close proximity of these three houses creates constant interaction between the characters. But Conch Street isn't just residential. It's also where you'll find the two most important restaurants in Bikini Bottom. The Krusty Krab sits on Conch Street, close to where SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward live. This makes it easy for SpongeBob and Squidward to get to work each day. The restaurant is shaped like a lobster trap, with a big anchor out front and the name Krusty Krab written in bright letters. Inside, there's a dining area where customers eat, a kitchen where SpongeBob cooks, a register where Squidward works, and Mr. Krab's office where he counts his money. Directly across the street from the Krusty Krab sits Plankton's restaurant, the Chum Bucket. While the Krusty Krab is always packed with happy customers, the Chum Bucket is always empty. The restaurant is small and run down, with a bucket-shaped design that matches its name. Inside, Plankton has tables and chairs waiting for customers who never come, a kitchen where he makes food nobody wants to eat, and a laboratory where he builds robots and schemes to steal the Krabby Patty formula. The fact that these two rival restaurants sit directly across the street from each other on Conch Street is perfect. Mr. Krabs can look out his window and see his enemy's empty restaurant. Plankton can look across the street and see the Krusty Krab packed with customers enjoying Krabby Patties. This constant reminder of success versus failure, of secret formula versus chum, drives Plankton's obsession to steal the recipe. Also on Conch Street, you'll find the Reef Cinema, a movie theater where Bikini Bottom residents go to watch films. The episodes show characters going to movies here, making it a popular hangout spot for entertainment. Having a movie theater on the same street as the main characters' homes and the main restaurants shows that Conch Street really is the center of Bikini Bottom life. But Conch Street, despite being the most important street, isn't the only part of Bikini Bottom. The street runs through and connects to downtown Bikini Bottom, which is the main business district of the city. Downtown is where you'll find tall buildings, more shops and restaurants, banks, and all the commercial activity that keeps a city running. When you look at downtown Bikini Bottom from a distance, you can see the skyline stretching across the ocean floor. There are buildings of different heights and shapes, creating that classic city look. Some buildings are homes where residents live. Others are businesses where people work. There are office buildings, apartment complexes, stores, and services of all kinds. The downtown area has its own character, separate from the residential neighborhood where SpongeBob lives. It's busier, more crowded, with more fish walking around doing their shopping and going about their business. You'll see cars, which they call boats, driving up and down the streets. Traffic lights control the flow of vehicles. Crosswalks let pedestrians cross safely. It all functions like a normal city, just underwater. One of the most recognizable landmarks in all of Bikini Bottom is the Sea Needle. This is the tallest point in the entire city, a tower that reaches up toward the ocean's surface high above. The Sea Needle appears in episodes like Pre-Hibernation Week, where Sandy takes SpongeBob on extreme adventures around Bikini Bottom. It's positioned just outside of downtown Bikini Bottom, serving as a landmark that can be seen from far away. Strangely enough, even though the Sea Needle is the tallest structure in the city, it doesn't always show up in shots of the Bikini Bottom skyline. Sometimes you can see it in the background, and sometimes it's just not there. But we know it exists, and that it's an important part of the city's geography. When you look at the Bikini Bottom skyline from various locations around the city, you can see different features. There are regular buildings and houses, of course, but you can also spot a large anchor that's sometimes visible. This isn't Mr. Krabs' house, which is also shaped like an anchor. This is a different, massive anchor that's just part of the landscape. Some episodes also show a lighthouse in the skyline, probably near the water's edge, helping guide boats safely through the area. In earlier episodes of the show, you could see a red flower arch as part of the skyline. This was a distinctive feature that appeared in the background during the first season. But as the show continued, the red flower arch disappeared and stopped showing up in later episodes. It's one of those little details that changed as the show evolved. Various other businesses and locations fill out Bikini Bottom's downtown and surrounding areas. There's a Bikini Bottom museum, where SpongeBob learned about his ancestor SpongeBuck. There's a boating school, where SpongeBob takes lessons from Mrs. Puff, trying again and again to get his driver's license. There are multiple restaurants besides the Krusty Krab and Chum Bucket, including places like Weenie Hut Jr.'s and the Goofy Goober ice cream place. Banks hold people's money, though they're often targets for robbery in various episodes. Stores sell all kinds of goods, from groceries to sporting equipment to clothing. There are hospitals where sick or injured fish go for treatment. There's a post office for mailing letters. There's a police station where officers work to keep the city safe. All the normal services and businesses you'd expect in a real city exist in Bikini Bottom. One important location is Makeout Reef, a romantic spot on the outskirts of town where couples go to spend time together in their cars. From Makeout Reef, you can see downtown Bikini Bottom in the distance, showing that this location sits outside the main city area, but still close enough to see the skyline. The city also has a boundary called the County Line. This marks the edge of Bikini Bottom's territory. Once you cross the county line, you're leaving Bikini Bottom and entering other areas of the ocean. The county line appears in various episodes and video games, showing that Bikini Bottom has defined borders like any real city would. All these locations, from Conch Street to downtown to the various landmarks and boundaries, create a complete city where the characters live their lives. You can trace a path from SpongeBob's pineapple house to the Krusty Krab where he works. You can see how Patrick lives just a few steps away, making it easy for them to have adventures together. You can understand why Squidward is so miserable when you realize he's trapped between his two annoying neighbors with no escape. The geography of Bikini Bottom also explains how characters run into each other so often. It's not that big of a city. The main characters all live on the same street or very close to it. They work at businesses that are near their homes. When they go downtown to shop or run errands, they're bound to see familiar faces. This creates a tight-knit community where everyone knows everyone else, for better or worse. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. But Bikini Bottom isn't just the developed areas with streets, houses, and businesses. Surrounding the city are wild, natural areas where incredible things exist and adventures await. Beyond the civilized heart of Bikini Bottom lies a world of jellyfish fields, beaches, forests, and mysterious depths that make the city's location truly special. Section 7. Natural Wonders and Wild Territories. Beyond the streets and buildings of Bikini Bottom lies a world of natural wonders that makes the city truly special. These aren't just ordinary parks or nature spots. These are vast, wild territories, filled with millions of creatures, dangerous terrain, and places where SpongeBob and his friends go on some of their greatest adventures. The most important of these natural areas are Jellyfish Fields, Goo Lagoon, and the Kelp Forest. Each one has its own unique features, its own dangers, and its own role in the lives of Bikini Bottom's citizens. Jellyfish Fields is probably the most famous natural area near Bikini Bottom. This massive territory is where jellyfish live, millions upon millions of them floating through the water, stinging anyone who gets too close. According to the episode Jellyfish Hunter, over 4 million jellyfish make their home in jellyfish fields. That's an absolutely huge number. Imagine trying to count 4 million of anything. You'd be counting for days, maybe weeks. But that's how many jellyfish call this place home. The episode Born to be Wild tells us that Jellyfish Fields is 50 miles long. 50 miles. That's the distance you might drive in a car for almost an hour on the highway. Jellyfish Fields stretches out across the ocean floor, going on and on, much bigger than Bikini Bottom itself. There are 2 entrances to Jellyfish Fields, one at the beginning and one at the end. So you can enter from one side and travel all the way through to exit on the other side. This means Jellyfish Fields actually connects to other towns and areas beyond Bikini Bottom. The main area of Jellyfish Fields is called Jellyfish Rock. This is where SpongeBob and Patrick go most often when they want to catch jellyfish. It's the heart of the territory, the place where the jellyfish are most active, and where the terrain is perfect for their favorite sport of jellyfishing. Remember, jellyfishing was accidentally invented way back in 8000 BC, when Squidward time-traveled to the prehistoric era. Now, thousands of years later, it's become SpongeBob and Patrick's absolute favorite thing to do. Jellyfish Fields isn't just flat ocean floor with jellyfish floating around. The territory has many different features and sub-areas that make it interesting and sometimes dangerous. There are the jellyfish caves, dark underground areas in the middle of Jellyfish Fields. These caves are built into the foundation of a mountain called Mount Spork. Long ago, early jellyfishers probably lived in these caves, using them as shelter. The caves are dark and a bit scary, and they lead to another area called Jellyfish Lake. Jellyfish Lake is a large pool of goo with a waterfall that falls from Mount Spork above. It's described as a peaceful place where jellyfish gather. The goo in the lake is different from the regular ocean water, creating a special environment that jellyfish particularly like. The waterfall adds to the beauty of the location, making it one of the more scenic spots in Jellyfish Fields. Mount Spork itself is the highest point in all of Jellyfish Fields. It towers above the surrounding territory, and at its summit lives someone very important, King Jellyfish. The king of all jellyfish makes his home at the top of this mountain. According to the episode, I'm Your Biggest Fanatic, King Jellyfish has a shower and bathtub up there at the summit. Yes, a jellyfish king living on a mountain has bathroom facilities. It doesn't make much sense, but that's what the episode tells us. King Jellyfish is massive, much bigger than normal jellyfish. He's powerful and rules over all the other jellyfish in the area. There's also a queen jellyfish mentioned in some episodes. According to the information available, queen jellyfish responds to being called loser, which is a strange detail, but apparently true. King jellyfish, on the other hand, likes pie. These little personality traits make the royal jellyfish feel more like actual characters instead of just animals. Another interesting feature of Jellyfish Fields is a place called Brain Coral Fields. This area has brain coral growing at the bottom of a cliff. The episode, Patrick Smartpants, shows that if someone replaces their brain with brain coral from this field, their intelligence changes dramatically. Patrick did exactly this in that episode, becoming super smart temporarily. The brain coral has special properties that can actually affect how smart someone is, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. Jellyfish Fields has faced danger multiple times throughout the show's history. In the episode SpongeBob's Last Stand, Plankton actually destroys Jellyfish Fields to build something called the Shelly Superhighway. The entire natural area is demolished, the jellyfish lose their home, and everything seems ruined. But SpongeBob and the other citizens of Bikini Bottom fight back and managed to restore jellyfish fields to normal, showing how important this natural area is to everyone. In Jellyfish Hunter, SpongeBob himself partially destroys jellyfish fields by catching every single jellyfish except one. Mr. Krabs wants jellyfish jelly for jelly patties, a new menu item, so SpongeBob goes on a massive catching spree. He hunts down jellyfish after jellyfish until almost none are left. The territory becomes empty and sad without all its jellyfish. Fortunately, SpongeBob realizes what he's done and lets all the jellyfish go, allowing jellyfish fields to return to normal. Besides jellyfish, other creatures live in jellyfish fields too. There are clams, leeches, and poisonous sea urchins scattered throughout the territory. These creatures add extra danger to anyone exploring the area. You're not just at risk from jellyfish stings. You might step on a sea urchin or get bitten by a leech. Jellyfish Fields is beautiful, but it's also wild and dangerous. One permanent landmark in Jellyfish Fields is Spongehenge. This is a circle of 8 large stone statues that look exactly like SpongeBob. The episode Spongehenge shows how these statues got there. SpongeBob created them during a terrible windstorm when jellyfish kept attacking him because the wind was whistling through his holes. He built 8 giant stone versions of himself, and when the wind blows through the holes in these statues, they create music that attracts jellyfish. In the far future, aliens discover Spongehenge and wonder what it means, proving that these statues will last for a very long time. While Jellyfish Fields is perfect for adventure and exploration, Bikini Bottom residents who want to relax head to Goo Lagoon. This is the beach area where everyone goes to have fun in the sun, even though they're already underwater. Goo Lagoon is actually a lake rather than a real lagoon, but everyone calls it Goo Lagoon anyway. It's where citizens spend their free time swimming, surfing, playing volleyball, and soaking up the rays. According to the episode Texas, Goo Lagoon is located near Jellyfish Fields, so the two natural areas are close to each other. When you arrive at Goo Lagoon, you'll often see an orange sign that says, "Welcome to Goo Lagoon." It's an inviting place that draws crowds during warm weather, though the temperature underwater probably doesn't change that much. Goo Lagoon has several distinct areas within it. There's Muscle Beach, which is the workout area where all the bodybuilders hang out. This is where you'll find muscular fish lifting weights, flexing their muscles, and trying to impress each other. Larry the Lobster is almost always at Muscle Beach, either working out or working as a lifeguard. Larry is one of the strongest creatures in Bikini Bottom, and he spends practically all his time at the beach lifting weights and surfing. Larry isn't the only lifeguard at Goo Lagoon. Multiple lifeguards work there to keep swimmers safe. In the episode SpongeGuard on Duty, SpongeBob pretends to be a lifeguard even though he has no idea what he's doing, creating chaos and danger until a real lifeguard has to save everyone. The episode shows how important real lifeguards are and how dangerous it is when someone unqualified tries to do their job. Out in Goo Lagoon, there are Goo Lagoon sea caves. These large caverns can only be reached by crossing a rope bridge from a giant sandcastle. Inside the caves, you'll find ancient cave drawings on the walls, suggesting that creatures have been coming to Goo Lagoon for thousands of years. The caves add mystery and history to what could otherwise be just a simple beach. There's also the Goo Lagoon Pier, which is a full amusement park built on a large dock extending out into the lagoon. The pier has rides, games, and attractions. The episode Valentine's Day shows a special event called the Valentine's Day Carnival happening at the pier. Patrick gets upset during this episode because SpongeBob's Valentine's gift for him hasn't arrived, leading to chaos at the carnival. The pier also appears in episodes like New Leaf, To Love a Patty, and Squid Plus One. The pier has a Ferris wheel that's tall enough to see all the way to the city limits of Bikini Bottom when you're at the top. There are also bumper boats, similar to bumper cars, but on water. In the video games Battle for Bikini Bottom and Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, Mr. Krabs tasks Patrick with clearing robots out of the bumper boat ride, showing that the pier is a popular attraction that needs protecting. Various events and competitions happen at Goo Lagoon throughout the year. There's a sandcastle competition, where people try to build the most impressive sandcastle. There's an annual hot dog eating contest, where participants try to eat as many hot dogs as possible, as shown in Sponge Guard on Duty. People play badminton at the beach, with Sandy being the champion until SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally break her record in the episode Ditchin'. There's even a concert stadium at Goo Lagoon, where singers perform. At the end of the episode Ripped Pants, SpongeBob performs a song at this stadium, singing about how he kept ripping his pants to try to be funny, but ended up losing his friends instead. The stadium is big enough to hold a large audience, making it a major entertainment venue. A lighthouse sits somewhere around Goo Lagoon, shown in the video games and the episode The Sponge Who Could Fly. Lighthouses are meant to warn boats away from dangerous rocks or shallow areas, so having one near the beach makes sense. There's also a bus stop near Goo Lagoon, as seen in the video game Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, making it easy for citizens to get to the beach using public transportation. In the video game Employee of the Month, there's a tanning salon at Goo Lagoon run by a fish named Ray. This is funny because everyone is already underwater, but apparently fish still want to tan themselves darker. The absurdity of tanning underwater is very much in the spirit of SpongeBob's world, where logic doesn't always apply. Goo Lagoon is the summer spot where everyone goes to have fun. During winter, people instead flock to Sand Mountain, which is the ski resort version of Goo Lagoon. Sand Mountain is a winter sports area where characters can ski and snowboard down snowy slopes, even though they're underwater. The episode Pre-Hibernation Week and others show Sandy and SpongeBob visiting Sand Mountain for extreme winter sports. The third major natural area near Bikini Bottom is the kelp forest. This is exactly what it sounds like. A huge forest made of kelp plants growing tall and thick across the ocean floor. The kelp forest is on the outskirts of Bikini Bottom, creating a natural boundary between the developed city and the wilder areas beyond. Inside the kelp forest, there's a camping area where people can set up tents and spend the night surrounded by nature. The episode Club SpongeBob is famous for showing SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward getting lost in the kelp forest. They wander around, unable to find their way out, dealing with various dangers and obstacles. The forest is so big and the kelp so thick that it's easy to get turned around and lost. The kelp forest also contains the kelp swamp, a large swampy area in the middle of the forest. The swamp has various islands scattered throughout the murky water. It's a dangerous place where creatures can easily get stuck or encounter hostile wildlife. To cross the kelp swamp safely, you need to use a bridge that leads to another area called the Kelp Caves. The Kelp Caves are large underground caverns located in the middle of the kelp forest. These caves are dark and mysterious, the kind of place where anything could be hiding. To reach the kelp caves, you have to cross that bridge over the kelp swamp, making them difficult to access. Not many people venture into the kelp caves, which means they remain largely unexplored. Outside the kelp caves, there's an area called kelp vines, where large vines create a natural slide. The vines are thick and strong enough to hold someone's weight as they slide down, creating a fun but potentially dangerous way to travel through that part of the forest. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. These natural areas, Jellyfish Fields, Goo Lagoon, and the kelp forest, give Bikini Bottom citizens places to escape the city and enjoy nature. They provide settings for adventures, sports, relaxation, and exploration. But these aren't the only territories beyond the city limits. There are darker, deeper places that exist below Bikini Bottom, places where few dare to go and where the ocean becomes truly terrifying. Section 8. The Dark Depths, Rock Bottom and Beyond. Not all areas near Bikini Bottom are bright and cheerful like Jellyfish Fields, or fun and relaxing like Goo Lagoon. Some places are dark, strange, and even frightening. The deeper you go in the ocean, the weirder things become. The most famous of these dark depths is a city called Rock Bottom, a place so bizarre and unsettling that even SpongeBob, who loves almost everything, found it terrifying. Rock Bottom exists in the deepest parts of the ocean, down in what's called an aphotic zone, where sunlight can't reach and everything lives in darkness. We know about Rock Bottom because SpongeBob accidentally ended up there in the episode Rock Bottom. The episode starts with SpongeBob and Patrick leaving Glove World, an amusement park shaped like a glove where they'd spent the day having fun. They were tired and ready to go home to Bikini Bottom. When a bus pulled up, they hopped on without paying much attention to where it was going. Big mistake. As the bus drove along, Patrick noticed a sign that said, "Leaving Bikini Bottom." They suddenly realized they were on the wrong bus. Before they could do anything about it, the bus drove straight toward a cliff and went right over the edge. Not a small cliff either. This was a 90-degree drop straight down into the deep ocean. The bus plummeted down, 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 taking SpongeBob and Patrick into depths they'd never seen before. When the bus finally stopped and they got off, SpongeBob and Patrick found themselves in Rock Bottom. The city was unlike anything they'd ever experienced. Everything was dark. Not just a little dark, but seriously dark. SpongeBob even makes a comment about it in the episode, saying, "This isn't your average everyday darkness. This is advanced darkness." That line became famous because it perfectly captures how unnaturally dark Rock Bottom is. The darkness wasn't the only strange thing about Rock Bottom. The creatures who lived there looked completely different from the fish in Bikini Bottom. They were based on deep sea animals, the kind of weird-looking creatures that live in the darkest parts of the real ocean. They had odd shapes, strange colors, and features that seemed designed to survive in extreme conditions. Some had big eyes to see in the dark. Others had glowing parts to light their way. They all looked alien and unsettling to someone from normal Bikini Bottom. But the weirdest thing about Rock Bottom was how the residents talked. They spoke by blowing raspberries between their words. Not just occasionally, but with almost every word. It sounded something like, "I need to buy groceries, pibith." This way of talking made it almost impossible for outsiders to understand what Rock Bottom citizens were saying. SpongeBob tried to communicate with them, but kept getting confused because of all the raspberry sounds. The bus that brought them to Rock Bottom left, taking Patrick with it, but leaving SpongeBob behind. Patrick got on the bus heading back to Bikini Bottom, not realizing that SpongeBob wasn't with him. SpongeBob was now stuck in Rock Bottom all alone, in the darkness, surrounded by strange creatures he couldn't understand, with no idea how to get home. SpongeBob tried multiple times to catch a bus back to Bikini Bottom. Every time a bus pulled up to the stop, something would go wrong. He'd be at a vending machine trying to buy candy, and the bus would leave before he could get back to the stop. Or he'd be standing right there waiting, and the bus would pull away just as he ran up to it. Again and again, SpongeBob missed the bus by seconds. It was frustrating and scary, being trapped in this dark city, unable to get home. Finally, SpongeBob decided to go to the bus station and wait in line to ask about the schedule. The line was incredibly long. He waited and waited, moving forward slowly as the line crept along. By the time he finally reached the front, he was exhausted. He asked the clerk when the next bus to Bikini Bottom would arrive. The clerk, speaking with those raspberry sounds between every word, told SpongeBob that the next bus left in 5 seconds. 5 seconds. SpongeBob tried to run for it, but he was too late. The bus pulled away without him. Then the clerk delivered even worse news. That was the last bus until morning. SpongeBob was stuck in Rock Bottom overnight. As night fell, Rock Bottom became even darker and scarier. SpongeBob heard strange sounds in the darkness. He got frightened and ran back toward the cliff, hoping to find some way to climb up to Bikini Bottom. But the cliff was a straight 90-degree wall. There was no way to climb it. SpongeBob was trapped at the bottom with no way up and no buses running until morning. Then something happened in the darkness. SpongeBob heard a noise and panicked, but the noise came from someone who wanted to help. An anglerfish appeared, one of those deep-sea fish with a glowing light hanging in front of its face. This particular anglerfish was friendly. It had found SpongeBob's glove balloon that he'd gotten at Glove World earlier. The balloon had floated away and gotten lost, but the anglerfish brought it back. The anglerfish blew up the balloon until it was huge and full of air. Then it tied the balloon to SpongeBob's wrist. The balloon was so full that it started lifting SpongeBob up, up, up toward the surface. He floated away from rock bottom, rising along the cliff face, heading back toward Bikini Bottom high above. As he floated up, he saw Patrick on a bus heading down to rock bottom. Patrick had realized SpongeBob was stuck there and was coming back to rescue him. But SpongeBob was already escaping, so he just waved at Patrick as they passed each other. SpongeBob made it back to Bikini Bottom thanks to the kind anglerfish. He landed safely in front of his pineapple house, and the balloon popped. He was home. The episode ends with Patrick still riding the bus down to rock bottom, not knowing that SpongeBob had already escaped. Poor Patrick was probably going to have his own adventure trying to get back home from that dark, strange city. The episode Rock Bottom became famous among SpongeBob fans. It's considered one of the creepiest and most atmospheric episodes of the entire series. The darkness, the strange residents, the unsettling feeling of being lost in an alien place. It all combined to create something that felt different from the usual fun adventures in Bikini Bottom. The episode shows that the ocean has layers, and the deeper you go, the weirder and scarier it gets. Rock Bottom isn't just a one-time location that appeared and was forgotten. The city shows up again in various SpongeBob video games. In the video games Employee of the Month, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, and The Yellow Avenger, Rock Bottom appears as a level or location that players can visit. The video game Battle for Bikini Bottom even includes a reference to the famous vending machine scene from the episode. If SpongeBob approaches a vending machine in Rock Bottom during the game, a bus will show up and immediately leave, just like in the episode. A Halloween-themed version of Rock Bottom appears in the video game The Cosmic Shake, showing that this creepy city is perfect for horror-themed content. The darkness and strange atmosphere that make Rock Bottom unsettling in the regular episode make it even scarier when it's given a Halloween makeover. Rock Bottom inspired a real roller coaster called SpongeBob SquarePants Rock Bottom Plunge. The ride opened on March 15, 2008, at the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota. The roller coaster features vertical lifts and 90-degree turns, giving riders the feeling of plunging down that cliff into rock bottom, just like the bus in the episode. The ride reaches speeds over 40 miles per hour and has a drop of more than 60 feet. It lasts about 2 minutes and gives riders maximum forces of 4.4 Gs, making it an intense experience based on one of the show's creepiest episodes. The existence of Rock Bottom shows us something important about the world of SpongeBob SquarePants. Bikini Bottom isn't the only underwater city. There are other communities scattered throughout the ocean, each with their own culture, their own way of life, and their own residents. Rock Bottom is just one example, but it proves that the ocean is full of different cities and towns, all existing at different depths, and all having developed in their own unique ways. Rock Bottom also teaches us that the ocean has what scientists call zones based on depth. The deeper you go, the less light reaches that area. Eventually, you reach depths where no sunlight penetrates at all. These deep areas are home to creatures specially adapted to live in darkness, just like the weird fish that live in Rock Bottom. The episode takes this real scientific fact and turns it into a creepy city where normal Bikini Bottom residents feel completely out of place. Other dark and mysterious areas exist in the ocean beyond Rock Bottom. There's a place called the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard, a spooky location where the ghost of the Flying Dutchman lives in his ship. The Flying Dutchman is a legendary ghost who haunts the ocean, scaring people and stealing souls. His graveyard is filled with old shipwrecks, treasure, and danger. There's also something called the Bikini Bottom Triangle, similar to the real-world Bermuda Triangle, where ships and planes mysteriously disappear. The episode Welcome to the Bikini Bottom Triangle deals with this mysterious area where strange things happen and reality doesn't work normally. Mount Climb Up and Fall Off is another location mentioned in the show. Based on the name, it's exactly what it sounds like, a mountain where you climb up and then fall off. It's probably dangerous and not recommended for casual visitors. All these dark, deep, and dangerous places exist in the same ocean as bright, cheerful Bikini Bottom. They remind us that the world of SpongeBob is bigger than just the main city. There are scary places, mysterious places, places where normal rules don't apply, and where creatures live in ways completely different from how Bikini Bottom residents live. The contrast between Bikini Bottom and Rock Bottom is striking. Bikini Bottom is bright, colorful, and full of optimistic characters going about their daily lives. Rock Bottom is dark, strange, and full of creatures who communicate in ways outsiders can't understand. Bikini Bottom feels safe and familiar. Rock Bottom feels alien and threatening. Yet they exist in the same ocean, separated only by that 90-degree cliff. This contrast shows that not every place is meant to be comfortable or welcoming. Some places exist for creatures adapted to those specific conditions. The residents of Rock Bottom aren't scary or evil. They're just different. They've adapted to their dark environment and developed their own way of living. To them, Rock Bottom is normal. It's home. It's SpongeBob who's the strange outsider who doesn't fit in. The deep ocean holds mysteries that Bikini Bottom residents rarely encounter. Most of them live their entire lives in the well-lit areas where the city exists, never venturing down to places like Rock Bottom. Why would they? Everything they need is in Bikini Bottom. But knowing that these deeper, darker places exist adds depth to the world. It makes the ocean feel bigger and more complex. SpongeBob's adventure in Rock Bottom taught him that not everywhere is as friendly as his hometown. He experienced what it's like to be a stranger in a strange land, unable to communicate, unable to understand the local customs, and desperate to get back to familiar territory. It was probably one of his scariest experiences, made even worse by the darkness and his isolation. But even in scary Rock Bottom, SpongeBob found kindness. The anglerfish who returned his balloon and helped him escape didn't have to do that. The creature could have ignored SpongeBob or even taken advantage of his helplessness. Instead, it helped him get home. This shows that even in dark and frightening places, good can exist. Not everything that looks scary is actually dangerous. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. As unsettling as Rock Bottom and other deep ocean areas can be, they're still part of the natural world surrounding Bikini Bottom. But there's one place that stands above all others in importance, power, and mystery. The restaurant that started it all and continues to drive the city's economy and drama every single day. Section 9. The Krusty Krab Empire. If you asked anyone in Bikini Bottom what the most important building in the entire city is, most would probably say the Krusty Krab. This restaurant isn't just a place to eat. It's the heart of the local economy, the source of the city's most beloved food, and the center of countless adventures and conflicts. The Krusty Krab represents everything Mr. Krabs has worked for, everything Plankton desperately wants, and everything SpongeBob loves about his life. Understanding the Krusty Krab means understanding what drives Bikini Bottom itself. The Krusty Krab sits on Conch Street, making it easy for residents to stop by for a meal. The building itself is designed to look like a lobster trap, which makes sense since Mr. Krabs is a crab and the restaurant serves seafood. Well, not actual seafood, since everyone in Bikini Bottom is a sea creature, but you get the idea. The restaurant has a distinct look, with its anchor sitting out front and the big sign displaying the name Krusty Krab in bold letters that can be seen from far away. Out front, there's a large anchor that serves as a landmark. This isn't Mr. Krab's house, which is also shaped like an anchor. This is just part of the restaurant's exterior design. The anchor helps people recognize the Krusty Krab from a distance, making it impossible to miss when you're driving or walking down Conch Street. Inside the Krusty Krab, the layout is simple and practical. There's a dining area filled with tables and chairs where customers sit to eat their meals. The dining room has a nautical theme with decorations related to the ocean and sailing. At the front of the dining area is the order counter, where Squidward works as the cashier. He stands at the register all day, taking orders from customers, collecting money, and handing out food. Behind Squidward is the kitchen, where SpongeBob works his magic making Krabby Patties. The kitchen is SpongeBob's domain. It has a grill where he cooks the patties, storage areas for ingredients, and all the equipment needed to prepare food. SpongeBob knows every inch of this kitchen. He can cook with his eyes closed. He can make hundreds of patties in minutes without breaking a sweat. The kitchen is where SpongeBob feels most at home, more comfortable than anywhere else in the world. Mr. Krabs' office is located somewhere in the restaurant, though its exact position changes between episodes. His office is where he counts his money, manages the business, and plans ways to increase profits. The office contains a safe where Mr. Krabs keeps the most valuable thing he owns, the secret formula for Krabby Patties. That formula, locked away in Mr. Krabs' safe, is the real treasure of the Krusty Krab. Without it, the restaurant would be nothing special. There are also bathrooms in the Krusty Krab for customers to use. Different episodes show different numbers of bathroom stalls. In To SquarePants or Not to SquarePants, there are 2 stalls. In Eek, an Urchin, there are 3. The number changes depending on what the episode needs, which is fine. It's a cartoon after all. The important thing is that the restaurant has bathrooms somewhere. According to various episodes, the Krusty Krab is open from 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening, 6 days a week. The restaurant operates Monday through Saturday and is closed on Sundays. This gives Mr. Krabs and his employees 1 day off per week, though Mr. Krabs probably hates closing for even 1 day because it means missing out on potential profits. The Krusty Krab is famous throughout Bikini Bottom for one thing: the Krabby Patty. This burger is the most popular food item in the entire city. Everyone loves Krabby Patties. They're delicious, satisfying, and apparently unlike any other burger anywhere. The reason they taste so good is the secret formula that Mr. Krabs keeps locked in his safe. That formula, invented by King Krabs back in 1199, has been a family secret for over 800 years. The secret formula is written on a piece of paper that lists all the ingredients and the exact method for preparing a Krabby Patty. Mr. Krabs guards this formula obsessively. He trusts almost nobody with it. Even SpongeBob, who cooks Krabby Patties every single day, doesn't know what's in the secret formula. He follows recipes and procedures that Mr. Krabs has given him, but he doesn't know the actual secret ingredient that makes the patties special. Some people in the show have suggested different theories about what's in a Krabby Patty. In the episode where they discuss this, Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, jokingly suggested that Krabby Patties are made of hummus. But that's just a joke. The show's writers have said they will never reveal what's actually in the secret formula. It's meant to stay a mystery forever. One writer even said that Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob, who passed away in 2018, was the only person who ever knew what the true secret formula was. The mystery of the secret formula is what drives the eternal conflict between Mr. Krabs and Plankton. Across the street from the Krusty Krab sits the Chum Bucket, Plankton's restaurant. While the Krusty Krab is always packed with happy customers, the Chum Bucket is always empty. Nobody wants to eat at the Chum Bucket because the food is disgusting. Plankton serves chum, which is basically ground up fish parts. It's gross and everyone knows it. Plankton is obsessed with stealing the Krabby Patty formula. He believes that if he can just get his hands on that secret recipe, he can start making Krabby Patties at the Chum Bucket and finally have customers. He's been trying to steal the formula for decades. Remember, his first attempt was back in 1979. That means Plankton has spent over 20 years trying and failing to steal this recipe. The show depicts Plankton's attempts to steal the formula in almost every episode where he appears. He builds robots to break into the Krusty Krab. He disguises himself to sneak past Mr. Krabs. He makes elaborate plans involving mind control, shrinking machines, and computer viruses. Nothing ever works. SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs, or sometimes just plain bad luck, always stops Plankton from getting the formula. This rivalry between the Krusty Krab and the Chum Bucket is personal, because Mr. Krabs and Plankton used to be friends. The episode Friend or Foe shows their childhood friendship and how it fell apart over their failed attempt to make burgers together. When that friendship ended, they became bitter enemies. Mr. Krabs built a successful restaurant empire while Plankton struggled with an empty restaurant across the street. Every day, Plankton has to look at the Krusty Krab's success and be reminded of his own failure. The Krusty Krab wasn't always owned by Mr. Krabs, at least not according to all episodes. In Selling Out, Mr. Krabs actually sells the Krusty Krab to someone named Howard Blandy. Mr. Krabs takes the money and retires, thinking he'll enjoy his wealth. But he quickly realizes he misses his restaurant. By the end of the episode, he buys it back from Howard Blandy and returns to running the Krusty Krab himself. In The Algae's Always Greener, Plankton uses a machine to switch lives with Mr. Krabs. Suddenly, Plankton owns the Krusty Krab while Mr. Krabs is stuck running the chum bucket. Plankton thinks he's finally won, but he quickly discovers that owning the Krusty Krab is much harder than it looks. He can't handle the stress, the complaints, and the constant problems. By the end of the episode, he switches everything back to normal, learning that Mr. Krab's life isn't as easy as it seems. Several people have worked at the Krusty Krab over the years besides SpongeBob and Squidward. Before SpongeBob got hired in December 1999, a fry cook named Jim worked there. Jim started in 1972, the same year Squidward was hired. Jim was an excellent fry cook who made amazing Krabby Patties. He and Squidward were good friends. The Krusty Krab was fancier back then, more classy and refined. But Jim eventually quit because Mr. Krabs was too cheap and wouldn't pay him enough. The episode, The Original Fry Cook, shows Jim returning years later, now rich and successful, driving a golden limousine and living the good life. Other temporary employees have worked at the Krusty Krab in various episodes. In Squid on Strike, 3 teenagers get hired after SpongeBob and Squidward go on strike and refuse to work. Patrick has worked there temporarily in some episodes. Sandy filled in once. Even Plankton's computer wife Karen worked at the Krusty Krab briefly in one episode, though she was actually trying to help Plankton steal the formula. SpongeBob's official job title at the Krusty Krab is Vice Assistant General Manager in charge of certain things, according to the episode Stanley S. SquarePants. But everyone just calls him the Fry Cook, because that's what he actually does. He flips patties, assembles burgers, and serves food to customers. He takes his job incredibly seriously, treating it like the most important position in the world. SpongeBob's dedication to his job is extreme. In the episode Pizza Delivery, SpongeBob and Squidward have to deliver a pizza to a customer's house. They get lost in the middle of nowhere, facing tornadoes and getting stranded in a desert. SpongeBob refuses to give up. He's willing to risk his life and Squidward's life just to deliver that pizza and make sure they have one satisfied customer. His work ethic is admirable, but also kind of crazy. Mr. Krabs loves money more than anything, except his daughter Pearl. He's incredibly cheap, always looking for ways to cut costs and increase profits. He pays his employees very little. He uses the cheapest ingredients possible. He charges customers as much as he can get away with. In various episodes, Mr. Krabs does ridiculous things to save money, like using 1 napkin per customer, or harvesting jellyfish for their jelly to make a few extra dollars. Despite being cheap and obsessed with money, Mr. Krabs does care about the Krusty Krab. The restaurant is his life's work, built on his family's secret recipe. He takes pride in running the #1 restaurant in Bikini Bottom. He may be greedy, but he's also a businessman who worked hard to build something successful. The Krusty Krab has been threatened many times throughout the show. It's been destroyed by disasters, attacked by monsters, taken over by villains, and shut down by health inspectors. But it always comes back. Mr. Krabs always rebuilds it, reopens it, and gets back to business. The Krusty Krab is too important to Bikini Bottom's economy and culture to stay closed for long. According to SpongeBob in various episodes, the Krusty Krab is the finest eating establishment ever established for eating. That's his official description of it, and he truly believes it. To SpongeBob, working at the Krusty Krab isn't just a job, it's his calling. It's his purpose in life. Making Krabby Patties brings him joy. Serving customers makes him happy. The Krusty Krab is where SpongeBob becomes his best self. The restaurant represents different things to different characters. To Mr. Krabs, it's a money-making machine and the fulfillment of his family legacy. To SpongeBob, it's a temple where he practices his art of fry cooking. To Squidward, it's a prison where he's trapped with an annoying coworker and a cheap boss. To Plankton, it's the obstacle standing between him and success. And to the citizens of Bikini Bottom, it's simply the best place to get a delicious burger. The Krusty Krab's success isn't just about the secret formula, though. It's also about location, consistency, and reputation. The restaurant sits on Conch Street, where everyone passes by. It's been open for years, building trust with customers. And SpongeBob, despite being annoying to Squidward, is actually an incredible fry cook who makes perfect Krabby Patties every single time. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. But while the Krusty Krab dominates daily life in Bikini Bottom, the city exists under the ultimate authority of someone far more powerful than Mr. Krabs or any business owner. The entire ocean, including Bikini Bottom, answers to a supreme ruler whose power and influence stretch across all underwater kingdoms. Section 10. King Neptune and Ocean Governance. Above all the mayors, all the business owners, and all the regular citizens of Bikini Bottom stands one supreme ruler who commands the entire ocean. His name is King Neptune, and he's described as the god and king of all the seas. Neptune's power reaches everywhere underwater, from the brightest coral reefs to the darkest ocean trenches. His authority is absolute. His magical abilities are legendary, and his name is spoken with respect and sometimes fear by every creature in the ocean. Understanding King Neptune means understanding the ultimate power structure that governs Bikini Bottom and all underwater civilization. King Neptune is mentioned constantly throughout SpongeBob SquarePants, even in episodes where he doesn't actually appear. Citizens of Bikini Bottom use his name the same way people on land might use the word God. They say things like, "Dear Neptune," "Thank Neptune," "Oh my Neptune," and "Neptune preserve her." These phrases show up in countless episodes, proving that Neptune is deeply woven into underwater culture and language. His name represents divinity, power, and authority over everything in the sea. The current Neptune is officially called King Neptune 14th, meaning he's the 14th ruler to hold the Neptune title. This detail appears in the episode Krusty Towers, when Squidward requests a room makeover with a Neptune the 14th theme. When the makeover is complete, it includes a portrait of Neptune, confirming that multiple Neptunes have ruled throughout history. This explains why Neptune sometimes looks different in different episodes. They might be different generations of the Neptune dynasty. King Neptune is married to Queen Amphitrite, making her the queen of the ocean. Together they rule from their palace, though the location of this palace changes depending on which episode or movie you're watching. The show isn't always consistent about where Neptune lives or what he looks like, but his role as supreme ruler stays the same. In the regular TV show, Neptune appears as a muscular, green-skinned merman with long flowing hair, a thick beard, and a mustache. He's massive and powerful looking, exactly what you'd expect from a god king. He wears a crown on his head and carries a trident, which is his weapon and symbol of power. The trident can shoot lightning bolts and fire, giving Neptune incredible magical abilities. He can use it to punish those who displease him or reward those who earn his favor. This version of Neptune first appears in the episode Neptune's Spatula. In this episode, there's an ancient legend about a golden spatula stuck in an anvil. According to the legend, only the greatest fry cook in the ocean can pull the spatula free, and whoever does will be declared worthy of cooking for King Neptune himself. SpongeBob accidentally pulls the spatula out, bringing Neptune down from his palace to meet this legendary cook. Neptune challenges SpongeBob to a cook-off at the Poseidome, a massive arena where underwater sporting events and competitions take place. The challenge is simple. Whoever can make 1,000 Krabby Patties first wins. Neptune uses his godlike powers to instantly create 1,000 patties in seconds, finishing while SpongeBob has only completed his first burger. Neptune celebrates his victory and hands out his patties to the audience. But then something unexpected happens. The audience hates Neptune's patties. They're terrible, made too quickly without any care or love. Neptune then tastes SpongeBob's single patty and is amazed. It's delicious, perfect in every way. Neptune declares SpongeBob the true winner and offers to make him a god so he can live in Atlantis and cook for Neptune forever. SpongeBob is honored, but realizes that becoming a god means leaving his friends behind. His friends can't come with him to Atlantis because they're not gods. SpongeBob doesn't want that. He'd rather stay in Bikini Bottom with Patrick, Sandy, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs than become immortal and powerful, but alone. So SpongeBob makes Neptune a different offer. Neptune can become SpongeBob's trainee at the Krusty Krab and learn how to cook properly. Neptune agrees, showing that even gods can be humble enough to learn from mortals. This TV version of Neptune also appears in other episodes like The Clash of Triton, and in the video games Battle for Bikini Bottom and Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. In the video games, Neptune summons SpongeBob and Patrick to the Poseidon Dome to fight a robot version of Sandy that's gone haywire. Neptune appears as a powerful but generally fair ruler who treats SpongeBob and Patrick with respect. But there's another version of Neptune that appears in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, and this Neptune is very different. The movie Neptune is bald on top of his head, though he claims he's just thinning rather than actually bald. His skin is brighter green than the TV version. His nose is larger, his beard looks different, and most importantly, his personality is completely different. Movie Neptune is cruel, short-tempered, and tyrannical. He rules with an iron fist, punishing his subjects harshly for even tiny mistakes. At the beginning of the movie, we see him sentence his crown polisher to 20 years in the dungeon just for touching the crown, even though touching the crown is literally the polisher's job. This shows how unreasonable and mean this version of Neptune can be. Neptune's crown is extremely important to him, not just because it's a symbol of his power, but because it covers his bald head. He's incredibly insecure about being bald, and wears the crown constantly to hide his thinning hair. When Plankton steals the crown and frames Mr. Krabs for the crime, Neptune is furious. He storms into the Krusty Krab, ready to execute Mr. Krabs on the spot by frying him with his trident. SpongeBob tries to defend Mr. Krabs, insisting that his boss is innocent. Neptune doesn't care. He's so angry about his stolen crown that he's willing to kill someone without even investigating properly. Neptune's daughter, Princess Mindy, finally convinces her father to give SpongeBob a chance to retrieve the crown before executing Mr. Krabs. Neptune agrees, but sets a time limit of 6 days. Originally he said 10 days, but Patrick accidentally argued it down to 6. To make sure Mr. Krabs doesn't escape, Neptune freezes him solid. Mr. Krabs stands frozen like a statue in the Krusty Krab for the entire movie, while SpongeBob and Patrick travel to Shell City to retrieve the crown. Neptune spends this time dealing with his bald spot, checking his head in a magic clam that Princess Mindy uses to watch SpongeBob's progress. Neptune is so obsessed with his appearance that he barely notices when Plankton takes over Bikini Bottom using mind control helmets. By the end of the movie, Plankton has enslaved everyone in Bikini Bottom, including King Neptune himself. Plankton puts a mind control helmet on Neptune and uses him as a puppet. But SpongeBob breaks everyone free by singing, "I'm a Goofy Goober Rock," destroying all the mind control helmets with the power of rock music. Neptune and all the citizens are freed from Plankton's control. With Plankton exposed as the real crown thief, Neptune realizes he made a terrible mistake. He almost killed Mr. Krabs, an innocent man, just because he was angry and jumped to conclusions. Neptune apologizes to Mr. Krabs for falsely accusing him and nearly executing him. He also thanks SpongeBob for saving everyone and retrieving his precious crown. Princess Mindy tells her father that being a loving and compassionate ruler is better than being cruel and tyrannical. Neptune finally learns this lesson and promises to be a better king. The movie version of Neptune lives in a sandcastle palace somewhere outside Bikini Bottom. It's not clear exactly where this palace is located, but it's described as being near Atlantis. The palace is grand and impressive, fitting for a king, but it's not the same as the Atlantis palace where the TV show version of Neptune supposedly lives. This creates confusion because there are clearly two different Neptunes with two different personalities and appearances. Some fans believe they're the same Neptune at different points in his life. Maybe the TV show Neptune is younger with hair, and the movie Neptune is older and bald. Other fans think they're two completely different rulers, perhaps father and son, with one Neptune passing the title to the next generation. The show kind of confirms that multiple Neptunes can exist when it mentions Neptune 14, suggesting a long line of rulers who've all held the Neptune title. Just like there were multiple kings named Louis in France, or multiple pharaohs with the same name in Egypt, there have been multiple King Neptunes ruling the ocean throughout history. Regardless of which Neptune is which, they all share certain characteristics. They're powerful beings with magical abilities far beyond normal sea creatures. They rule over the entire ocean, not just Bikini Bottom. They carry tridents as weapons and symbols of authority. They wear crowns that represent their royal status. And they expect respect and obedience from their subjects. King Neptune has children, though the exact family tree gets confusing because different episodes and movies show different relatives. The TV show episode, The Clash of Triton, introduces Neptune's son, Triton. Triton is a rebellious teen who's been locked away for thousands of years because he was a troublemaker. When Triton escapes, he's angry at his father and takes revenge by destroying things and causing chaos. Eventually, Neptune and Triton reconcile, with Neptune apologizing for being too strict. The movie introduces Princess Mindy, Neptune's daughter. Mindy is kind and compassionate, the complete opposite of her cruel father. She helps SpongeBob and Patrick on their journey to Shell City, encouraging them and using her magic to assist them. Mindy represents what Neptune could be if he weren't so angry and insecure. She tries throughout the movie to make her father understand that being kind is better than being mean. Neptune's rule extends to all underwater kingdoms and cities. He's not just the king of Bikini Bottom, he's the king of everywhere underwater. This means that even though Bikini Bottom has its own mayor and local government, Neptune is still the ultimate authority. If Neptune wanted to change Bikini Bottom's laws or make demands of the city, he could, because his power supersedes any local government. The Poseidome, where Neptune holds competitions and events, is a major landmark in Bikini Bottom. This massive arena is where the fry cook competition happened in Neptune's spatula, and where SpongeBob and Patrick fight the robot Sandy in the video games. The Poseidome shows that Neptune takes an active interest in Bikini Bottom's affairs, and sometimes visits the city for important events. In one episode, a character named Shuby Fishbowl actually denies Neptune's existence, saying, "Everyone knows Poseidon is the ruler of the undersea." This is interesting because it suggests some creatures believe in Poseidon, the Greek god of the undersea, instead of Neptune, the Roman god of the sea. In real mythology, Neptune and Poseidon are the same deity, just with different names from different cultures. The show plays with this confusion, never making it completely clear whether Neptune and Poseidon are the same being or different rulers. What matters is that underwater creatures recognize a supreme ruler who governs all the seas. Whether they call him Neptune or Poseidon, he represents ultimate authority and power. His word is law. His decisions are final, and his rule has continued for thousands of years through multiple generations of Neptune kings. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. But Neptune isn't the only ancient power that has influenced Bikini Bottom's history. Far away from Neptune's palace, in a location that was once lost to history, lies a civilization even older and more advanced than any kingdom Neptune has ever ruled. Section 11. Atlantis, the lost city rediscovered. Long before King Neptune ruled the seas, long before medieval kings built castles in Bikini, Bottomshire, even before the prehistoric creatures discovered fire, visitors from another world arrived in Earth's ocean. These visitors were the Atlanteans, an advanced race who came from a distant planet and established the legendary city of Atlantis. For thousands of years, Atlantis remained hidden, its location forgotten, its wonders lost to time. But SpongeBob and his friends eventually rediscovered this ancient city, revealing secrets about its alien origins and the incredible technology that powered it. The story of how Atlantis was rediscovered begins in jellyfish fields. SpongeBob and Patrick were there doing what they loved most, blowing bubbles. Patrick was trying to take pictures of the bubbles with his camera, but every time he pressed the button, the bubble would pop before he could capture the image. This kept happening over and over, frustrating Patrick and amusing SpongeBob. SpongeBob decided to try blowing a really big bubble, one that might last long enough for Patrick to photograph. He blew and blew, creating a bubble so enormous that it engulfed both of them. The giant bubble lifted them off the ground and carried them through the air, floating along with SpongeBob and Patrick trapped inside. They screamed for help, not realizing where the bubble was taking them. The bubble drifted into a nearby cave, miles from where they'd started. Inside the cave, it finally popped when it hit something hard. SpongeBob and Patrick tumbled to the ground, dizzy and confused. When they looked at what had popped their bubble, they saw it was a piece of ancient gold, half of some kind of medallion. The piece had letters carved into it that read, Antis. Patrick, in his usual not very smart way, looked at the letters and came up with a theory. He told SpongeBob that Antis probably stood for Square Pantis, suggesting that this medallion belonged to SpongeBob's ancient ancestors, and that his family's original last name was Square Pantis. SpongeBob believed this story immediately, thinking he'd discovered an important piece of his family history. They decided to take the medallion piece to the Bikini Bottom Museum to find out what it really was. When they arrived at the museum, they ran into Squidward, who was there painting pictures related to Atlantis. Squidward saw the medallion half that SpongeBob was holding, and immediately accused him and Patrick of stealing the Atlantean amulet from the museum's collection. But then, Squidward realized something amazing. The amulet was still on display in the museum. What SpongeBob had found was the missing half that had been lost for ages. The museum only had one half of the Atlantean amulet, and SpongeBob had just discovered the other half. This was an incredible find, a piece of history that nobody had seen in thousands of years. Sandy was also at the museum that day, and she explained what the amulet meant. According to ancient legends, when both halves of the Atlantean amulet are joined together, they reveal the path to Atlantis. The lost city could finally be found if someone united the two pieces. Squidward, being interested in art and culture, got very excited. He'd studied Atlantis extensively and knew that the city was famous for having incredible artwork and culture. As Squidward explained the history of Atlantis, Krabs happened to walk by the museum. He was pretending to be a museum employee so he could charge people admission fees and pocket the money himself. When he heard about Atlantis and learned that the city supposedly had streets paved with gold and rooms full of treasure, his eyes turned into dollar signs. Mr. Krabs immediately wanted to go to Atlantis to get that gold. They decided to put the two amulet halves together to see what would happen. The moment the pieces connected, something magical occurred. The amulet began to glow with ancient power. Suddenly, a vehicle appeared out of nowhere, materializing right in front of them. It was a bus, but not a normal bus. This was an Atlantean bus, decorated with symbols and designs from the ancient city, clearly powered by magic or advanced technology. The bus doors opened, inviting them inside. SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and Sandy all climbed aboard, each excited for different reasons. SpongeBob and Patrick had heard about the oldest living bubble that Atlantis kept as a treasure, and they desperately wanted to see it. Mr. Krabs wanted the gold and treasure. Squidward wanted to experience the art and culture. Sandy wanted to study the advanced science and technology. What they didn't know was that Plankton had secretly stowed away in the bus's glove compartment. He'd been spying on them at the museum and realized this was his chance to get to Atlantis and steal their advanced weapons. Plankton figured that with Atlantean weapons, he could finally defeat Mr. Krabs and steal the Krabby Patty formula. The bus couldn't move at first. An automated computer voice announced that the bus needed song fuel to operate. This revealed something amazing about Atlantean technology. It runs on music. The bus required singing to generate power, so everyone on board started singing about what they hoped to find in Atlantis. SpongeBob sang about the oldest living bubble. Mr. Krabs sang about money and treasure. Sandy sang about science. Squidward sang about art and culture. Their combined singing powered the bus, and it began to move. The magical bus traveled through the ocean, eventually crash-landing in Atlantis on a garden full of shaped bushes and plants. They had made it. The lost city of Atlantis was real, and they were actually there. Waiting to greet them was Lord Royal Highness, or LRH for short, the ruler of Atlantis. LRH was voiced by famous musician David Bowie, giving the character a distinctive and memorable presence. Lord Royal Highness and the other Atlanteans looked unusual. They had blue skin and strange features, resembling what fans described as similar to characters from the Beatles' Yellow Submarine movie. The Atlanteans were welcoming and friendly, happy to have visitors after being isolated for so long. LRH offered to give them a tour of Atlantis, showing off the city's greatest treasures. The city was divided into different rooms, each dedicated to a different subject. There was a treasure room filled with gold, jewels, and valuable items. There was a weapons arsenal containing advanced Atlantean weapons. There was an art room showcasing incredible paintings and sculptures. And there was a science room displaying amazing technology. As they toured the city, each character became obsessed with their favorite room. Mr. Krabs couldn't leave the treasure room, diving into piles of gold coins and jewels like a child in a candy store. Squidward was mesmerized by the art room, staring at masterpieces and sophisticated culture. Sandy was fascinated by the science room, examining technology that was far more advanced than anything from Bikini Bottom. Meanwhile, Plankton snuck away from the group and found the weapons arsenal. He was amazed by the hundreds of advanced weapons stored there. Plankton climbed into what looked like a powerful tank, thinking he'd found the perfect weapon to conquer Bikini Bottom. He didn't realize yet that this tank, like everything in Atlantis, wasn't quite what it seemed. SpongeBob and Patrick finally got to see what they'd come for, the oldest living bubble. LRH brought them to a special room where the bubble was kept in a glass case. According to LRH, this bubble was 23,000 years old. The Atlanteans had blown it when they first arrived from their home planet all those years ago. It was their most prized possession, their national treasure, the oldest bubble in existence. The bubble was kept under strict protection. Signs everywhere said no flash photography, because camera flashes could pop the ancient bubble. Patrick, not thinking clearly as usual, got excited and immediately took a picture with his camera. The flash went off, and the oldest living bubble popped. It was gone, destroyed after surviving for 23,000 years. SpongeBob and Patrick panicked. They'd just destroyed Atlantis' most valuable treasure. LRH and his guards would surely punish them. They tried to sneak away and leave Atlantis immediately, hoping nobody would notice. But LRH stopped them and asked what was wrong. When SpongeBob confessed that they'd popped the bubble, LRH started laughing. He explained that the bubble they popped was just a fake, a tourist attraction. The real oldest living bubble was kept somewhere else, safe and protected. He brought out the real bubble to show them, and everyone was relieved. But then Patrick, being Patrick, took another picture. The flash popped the real bubble this time. The actual oldest living bubble, the genuine 23,000-year-old treasure of Atlantis, was destroyed. LRH was furious. His friendly demeanor disappeared instantly. He summoned the Atlantean Royal Guard, soldiers armed with tridents, pickaxes, and maces. The guards attacked, trying to capture SpongeBob and Patrick for destroying their national treasure. Sandy jumped into action, using her karate skills and her friends as weapons. She swung Squidward like a club, threw Patrick like a throwing star, used SpongeBob as a shield, and wielded Mr. Krabs like a lawn tool. They fought their way through the guards, running for their lives. That's when Plankton emerged in his stolen tank. He gave a big speech about how he was going to use Atlantean weapons to conquer everyone. He aimed the tank's weapon at SpongeBob and the gang and fired. But instead of a laser or missile, the tank shot out strawberry ice cream. Plankton had grabbed an oversized ice cream maker instead of a weapon. He was furious, kicking the tank in frustration and hurting himself. LRH saw Plankton and was delighted. He picked up the tiny creature and announced that a talking speck would make a perfect replacement for the destroyed bubble. He put Plankton in a jar, just like the one that had held the bubble, and placed him on display in the museum. Plankton became Atlantis' new national treasure, trapped in a jar while tourists took pictures of him. LRH loaded everyone else back onto the bus, took away the amulet, and told one of his guards to destroy it so nobody could ever return to Atlantis. He said to himself, "I thought sponges were supposed to make life easier," showing that he was glad to see them leave. The bus carried them back to Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob was the only one happy to be going home. Everyone else was sad about leaving. Mr. Krabs wanted to stay for the treasure. Sandy wanted to stay for the science. Squidward wanted to stay for the art. Even Patrick was sad because he'd destroyed the oldest living bubble. But SpongeBob sang a happy song about returning to Bikini Bottom, to his home, to his job at the Krusty Krab, and to his pet snail, Gary. The episode Atlantis Square Pantis revealed important facts about Bikini Bottom's ancient history. The Atlanteans really did come from another planet 23,000 years ago, confirming what was mentioned at the very beginning of Bikini Bottom's story. Atlantis disappeared in 1201, according to the timeline, which explains why it had been lost for so long. And the city possessed technology powered by singing, showing that the Atlanteans had developed science far beyond anything that exists in modern Bikini Bottom. The discovery and visit to Atlantis proved that the ocean holds secrets far older than anyone in Bikini Bottom imagined. While King Neptune rules the seas and dynasties rise and fall, Atlantis existed before any of them, built by aliens who chose Earth's ocean as their new home. The lost city represents a connection between the ocean and outer space, between ancient history and advanced technology, between myth and reality. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. But with the amulet destroyed and Atlantis once again hidden from the world, life in Bikini Bottom returned to normal. The citizens went back to their daily routines, their jobs, their homes, and their familiar surroundings, unaware of just how much history and wonder their small city contains. Section 12. The Living City Today. After exploring Bikini Bottom's ancient past, its medieval kingdoms, its Wild West days, and even its connection to alien civilizations, we finally arrive at the city as it exists today. Modern Bikini Bottom is a thriving underwater community where all the pieces of history we've discussed come together. This is the city that SpongeBob calls home, where he wakes up every morning excited to go to work, where Patrick lives under his rock, and where Squidward wishes he lived anywhere else. Understanding what Bikini Bottom is like today shows us how thousands of years of history created the world we see in every episode. Bikini Bottom sits at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, specifically beneath Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands. This location was confirmed by Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, and by Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob. The city rests on the ocean floor, far below the surface, deep enough that sunlight filters down, but not so deep that everything is pitch black like rock bottom. It's the perfect depth for a city to exist, with all the comforts and conveniences that make life enjoyable. The population of Bikini Bottom changes depending on which episode you watch. In the episode The Good Krabby Name and Yeti Crabs, the city is shown to have a population of about 500 residents. That's a pretty small number, about the size of a tiny town on land. But in the episode Nautical Novice, Miss Puff states that Bikini Bottom is home to millions of people. So the population is somewhere between 500 and several million, depending on when you're counting. What matters is that Bikini Bottom has enough citizens to fill restaurants, shops, schools, and all the businesses that make a city work. The city is located in something called Bikini State, according to the movie Plankton the Movie, which mentions BSU, or Bikini State University. This tells us that Bikini Bottom isn't just a random city floating in the ocean. It's part of a larger state government structure, similar to how cities on land are part of states or provinces. Bikini Bottom has its own local government, but also answers to state-level authorities. The city is run by a mayor, though the mayor doesn't appear in many episodes. There's a structured government with different departments handling various city services. There's a police force that keeps order and investigates crimes. Officers enforce the laws and arrest criminals when necessary. There's a court system where judges hear cases and juries decide verdicts. There are laws that everyone is expected to follow, and punishments for those who break them. Bikini Bottom has a stable economy based on businesses, jobs, and money. Citizens work to earn wages, then spend that money at restaurants, stores, and services. Mr. Krabs runs the most successful restaurant. Other business owners operate their own shops and services. There are banks where people deposit their savings. There's trade with other underwater cities, bringing goods and resources into Bikini Bottom. The education system includes Mrs. Puff's Boating School, where students learn to drive boats and earn their licenses. There are regular schools, where young fish learn reading, writing, math, and other subjects. SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, and other characters all went to school when they were younger, as shown in various flashback episodes. The city values education and provides opportunities for learning. Healthcare in Bikini Bottom is described as questionable in some sources, but there are hospitals and doctors available when citizens need medical care. When someone gets hurt or sick, they can go to the hospital for treatment. Doctors and nurses work to help patients recover. It's not always the best healthcare system, but it exists and serves the community's needs. Labor laws in Bikini Bottom seem pretty loose. Mr. Krabs pays his employees very little, makes them work long hours, and sometimes creates dangerous working conditions. SpongeBob doesn't mind because he loves his job, but Squidward is miserable. The fact that Mr. Krabs can get away with such cheap behavior suggests that labor laws either don't exist or aren't enforced very strictly. The city has a firm law enforcement system with police officers, detectives, and sometimes even SWAT teams for serious situations. Crime does happen in Bikini Bottom. There are robberies, vandalism, and various other illegal activities, but the police generally keep things under control, maintaining order and safety for most citizens most of the time. Downtown Bikini Bottom serves as the main commercial district. This is where you'll find the tallest buildings, the most shops, and the heaviest traffic. Businesses of all kinds operate downtown. There are offices where people work desk jobs. There are apartment buildings where residents live. There are restaurants other than the Krusty Krab, giving citizens dining options. There are clothing stores, furniture stores, grocery stores, and specialty shops selling everything from sporting goods to musical instruments. The downtown area has a distinct skyline visible from various points around the city. Buildings of different heights create that classic city look. The architecture varies, with some buildings looking modern and others having a more old-fashioned style. Streets run between the buildings, filled with boats driving back and forth. Traffic lights control the flow of vehicles at intersections. Crosswalks let pedestrians cross safely. Beyond downtown, residential neighborhoods spread out across the ocean floor. These areas have houses where families live, like SpongeBob's Pineapple, Squidward's Easter Island Head, and Patrick's Rock. The neighborhoods are quieter than downtown, with less traffic and more space. Kids play outside. Neighbors chat with each other. Life moves at a slower pace in the residential areas. Conch Street remains the most important street in Bikini Bottom, connecting residential neighborhoods to downtown and hosting the main characters' homes, plus the Krusty Krab and Chum Bucket. But there are other streets too. Coral Avenue is mentioned in some episodes. Shell Street appears occasionally. The city has a network of roads that let citizens travel wherever they need to go. Transportation in Bikini Bottom primarily relies on boats, which are basically cars that work underwater. Citizens drive these boats along roads, following traffic laws and stopping at red lights. There are also buses for public transportation, like the one SpongeBob accidentally took to Rock Bottom. Some citizens walk to their destinations, especially if they live close to where they're going. The city has numerous restaurants besides the Krusty Krab and Chum Bucket. There's Weenie Hut Juniors, a restaurant for nerds who aren't tough enough for more hardcore places. There's Super Weenie Hut Juniors for even nerdier customers. There's the Goofy Goober ice cream restaurant, where SpongeBob and Patrick go to drown their sorrows in ice cream sundaes. There's Pizza Castle, which Patrick once called by accident. Fancy restaurants serve expensive food to wealthy customers. Entertainment venues give citizens fun things to do. The Reef Cinema shows movies. The Poseidome hosts sporting events and competitions. Concert venues feature live music performances. There are arcades where kids play games. There are amusement parks, like Glove World, where families spend the day on rides and attractions. Bikini Bottom offers plenty of entertainment options for residents of all ages. Goo Lagoon Beach provides outdoor recreation during warm weather. Citizens swim, surf, play volleyball, and relax in the sun. Larry the Lobster and other lifeguards keep swimmers safe. The Goo Lagoon Pier has rides and games. People have parties and celebrations at the beach. It's a popular gathering spot where everyone goes to have fun. Jellyfish Fields remains a favorite destination for those who enjoy nature and adventure. SpongeBob and Patrick go jellyfishing there almost every day. Other citizens visit to experience the wild outdoors and see the millions of jellyfish that call it home. The fields are carefully maintained as a natural preserve, protected from development. The kelp forest offers camping and hiking opportunities. Families go there to spend time in nature, set up tents, and explore the wilderness. It's a reminder that even though Bikini Bottom is a developed city, wild areas still exist nearby where citizens can escape urban life. Miss Puff's Boating School continues teaching new generations of drivers. Students practice steering, braking, and following traffic rules. SpongeBob has failed his driving test hundreds of times, but keeps trying, convinced that one day he'll finally get his license. Other students learn successfully and graduate to become licensed drivers. The Bikini Bottom Museum preserves the city's history. It has exhibits about prehistoric times, medieval Bikini Bottomshire, the Wild West era, and modern history. Citizens visit to learn about their heritage and see artifacts from the past. SpongeBob discovered his ancestor SpongeBuck's story there. The museum ensures that history isn't forgotten as the city moves forward. Hospitals provide medical care when citizens get sick or injured. Doctors treat patients with various ailments. Nurses help with care and recovery. Ambulances rush emergency cases to the hospital. The healthcare system may not be perfect, but it serves the community's basic medical needs. Fire departments respond to fires and other emergencies. Firefighters risk their lives to save people and property. They put out fires, rescue citizens from dangerous situations, and provide emergency services. The fire department is an essential part of Bikini Bottom's safety infrastructure. Post offices handle mail delivery. Citizens send letters and packages to each other and to other cities. Mail carriers deliver items to homes and businesses. The postal system keeps Bikini Bottom connected to the outside world. Various clubs and organizations bring citizens together based on shared interests. There are sports teams that compete against each other. There are hobby clubs where people pursue their passions. There are social groups that organize events and activities. These organizations build community and help citizens make friends. Religious or spiritual practices exist, though they're not often shown. Citizens use Neptune's name in ways that suggest some kind of worship or respect for higher powers. There may be temples or places of worship, though they rarely appear in episodes. Spirituality exists in Bikini Bottom, even if it's not a major focus of the show. Holidays and celebrations happen throughout the year. Christmas comes to Bikini Bottom, as shown in the episode Christmas Who? Halloween is celebrated with costumes and spooky decorations. Valentine's Day brings romance and candy. Birthdays are marked with parties and presents. These celebrations give citizens special days to look forward to and share with loved ones. The city faces challenges like any community. Crime happens occasionally, requiring police response. Natural disasters sometimes strike, damaging property and endangering lives. Economic problems affect businesses and workers. Conflicts arise between neighbors, co-workers, and rivals. But Bikini Bottom always recovers, rebuilds, and continues forward. What makes Bikini Bottom special isn't just its history or its famous residents. It's the sense of community that connects everyone. SpongeBob loves his neighbors, even when they don't love him back. Patrick is loyal to his friends, no matter what. Sandy brings Texas spirit and scientific knowledge. Mr. Krabs runs his business with passion, even if he's too greedy. Squidward complains constantly, but stays because somewhere deep down, he's part of this community too. From alien visitors 23,000 years ago to SpongeBob flipping Krabby Patties today, Bikini Bottom has been shaped by countless events, rulers, inventions, and characters. The city carries all this history within it, even if most citizens don't think about it daily. They just live their lives, work their jobs, enjoy their free time, and call this underwater city home. And every morning, SpongeBob wakes up excited for another day in the city that has been built, destroyed, rebuilt, ruled by kings, visited by aliens, and finally settled into the imperfect but wonderful community it is today. The entire story of Bikini Bottom, from prehistoric darkness to modern light, continues with each new sunrise and each new adventure waiting to unfold. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.